George Sleeper sound check.
Loud and clear, George.
Thanks. The computer says I can't turn on my video because the host has stopped it.
Okay, I think I made you a co-host if you want to try it again. There you go.
Here we go.
Test.
How are you,
Loud and
Steve?
clear.
All right, thanks.
This is Travis. I'm just doing a quick sound check.
Good evening, Travis.
Hey, Scott,
Hey, Steve.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
Just
sir.
On the, just real quick before the meeting starts.
Yeah.
On the, health rezoning, the health, area rezoning for Bronson, is
Yeah.
there, I couldn't find it in my packet, but is there a map of which properties you want to put into that district?
There was one. I don't know if it made, I've seen the map. I don't know if it was in this packet though. I must admit, I'm trying to think if I saw it in this packet or it was another one, but there is a map out there. Yes.
I couldn't find it. I mean, I'm all for it, but I think it'd be nice if we had a map in this packet because it's,
You have to make
or
sure.
at least for sure in the next agenda when we go
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, we'll see if Kate can pull it up when we get to that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Kate, Matt, yep, you got it. Miss Kate, are you nearby?
I'm right here.
I'm checking, I'm at 7 o'clock on my phone.
Yep,
Got everybody? 1,
we sure do.
4, 5, 6. Yep, we got everybody. All right, let's go ahead and get going then. All right, everybody got audio going? See, everybody got it. Good evening, everyone. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of South Haven City Council for Monday, January the 18th, 2021. Good evening, everyone. And I will call this meeting to order. And the roll call this evening will be by our new city clerk, Nathan. Good evening, Nathan.
Good evening. All right. Jeff Arnold,
Here.
Chris Campbell,
He's not here. Sorry, he's,
Chris Campbell's ambassador. Okay. Joe Reeser,
Here.
Steve Schlack,
Here,
George Sleeper,
Here,
Letitia Wilkins, is Letitia Wilkins here?
Yep.
Okay. And Scott Smith.
Here, and if I can get a motion to excuse Chris, please.
This is Jeff Arnold. I make a motion to excuse Chris Campbell.
Steve Schlack, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to excuse Chris. And Letitia, if you can hear me, make sure you can unmute because we didn't catch on the last one. Roll call, please.
Hello? I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
Oh, so sorry, Nathan, we need a roll call on that. Motion to excuse. We're gonna have to roll call everything.
Oh, okay. Jeff Arnold,
Yes.
Joe Reeser,
Yes.
Steve Schlack,
Yes,
George Sleeper,
yes,
Letitia Wilkins,
Yes.
Scott
Scott Smith.
Smith. Yes. And we are now, the next item, in recognition of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I would like to introduce Mr. Eddie Polk. And Eddie, are you on there? Sorry, I'm looking at all these names on there to make sure you're on. I believe I'm getting the nod that Eddie is on. And just to say one thank you to Eddie, a resident of Ward 1, a wonderful man, a good friend. And I'd just like to thank him for taking the time to join us. And I'm going to keep twisting his arm, but one day he's going to be up here as a city council member. So I'm just giving you the early heads up. So Eddie, can you hear me? I'm waiting on. Okay, you got him on, right?
Yeah, can you hear me now, Scott?
Oh, there you are, Eddie. Yes, sir. Very good. Thank you, sir, for joining us this evening. And again, thank you for your time. And I look forward to having you share with us this evening some thoughts.
Well, I thank the council for that opportunity. It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you. Let me know when you're ready for me to begin.
You are ready to begin, sir.
First of all, well, good evening, everyone. I see a lot of names that I do recognize. Happy New Year, by the way. Okay, I'll get started. What I would like to do is just basically just go through a quick snapshot of the life of Martin Luther King in celebration and recognition of his contribution and his birthday, and tie it in with some issues of today that we deal with, that we're dealing with, and actually some of it is already, I kind of gleaned it from some of Martin Luther King's speeches and quotes. Issue like belonging and inclusiveness, Black Lives Matter, and also being politically correct when dealing with racial and ethnic issues. I'd like to tie that in with some of the context of Martin Luther King's speech, if that's okay. Just a quick background, quick rundown of his educational background. He was a very gifted young man, even from a child. He actually skipped 9th and 10th grade in high school. And he went into college. He graduated from Morehouse College in Atlanta in 1948 at the age of 19. He graduated from Crozier Theological Seminary with a bachelor's degree in 1951. And he earned his PhD in systematic theology in 1955. Martin had some experiences along the way, and I'm just going to touch on them briefly. Am I coming through clearly, Scott?
Yes, you sound perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and Scott, please give me a timeline. We said no more than 15 minutes, right? If
You'll be fine, I'm sure.
you
So,
would just cue me, okay? And I don't want to get too carried away with respect for everybody's time. There was a basis for a positive change in Martin's life. You know, for him, the civil rights movement began one summer in 1935. And he was only 6 years old at that time, and he had been playing ball with some friends. And one day when they didn't show up to play, he actually went to one of his friend's house and knocked on the door. And a mother came to the door and told him that they wouldn't be playing together, not then or ever. And the reason that was offered up was because he was Black and they were white. And you can imagine what that would have been like to a 6-year-old. So he struggled with that. And then later on, one evening later on in his life, he was quite a debater. He was quite articulate and had a very good command of the language. And he learned a lot of that from his father, who was a pastor as well. And one evening, he was returning from a debate tournament with his teacher on the bus. And this was on the way back, they were actually discussing the event, the debate and stuff. And at that time, the rule is that if there were no seats on the bus, and if a Black was sitting in a seat, they'd have to get up and give that seat to a white person who was boarding the bus. Well, this did occur, and young Martin wanted to resist that, and his teacher advised him that would not be a good idea, because after all, that was the law in the South, and he instructed him that they had to obey the law. So they actually rode home the next 90 miles standing up on that bus. So this had an impact in Martin's life early on. But anyway, later on, while he was attending Crozer, that's C-R-O-Z-E-R, Theological Seminary, he had attended a lecture at Howard University. And he was really quite enthralled or quite impressed with India's spiritual leader, who we know as Mahatma Gandhi. And the issue there was that caught him was Gandhi's nonviolent protest. This is against some of the injustices that they were experiencing, the country was experiencing from the British rule. And this is what really sparked the motivation in Martin to start down this path of civil rights and the struggle for freedom and equality and all these things. In 1954, Martin was called from Atlanta. He is married by then to his wife, Coretta. He was called to become pastor at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. And of course, Montgomery, Alabama was not known very well as a very welcoming place for anybody, because His wife, Coretta, objected to him taking that position. However, Martin decided to take it anyway. And of course, he was well received at that church and quite well supported. So that later on, there was an incident that occurred in Martin's life that really, and we all know about it, it was the incident of Rosa Parks refusing to give up her bus. She was going home one evening after work. She worked at a seamstress, as a seamstress in a downtown Montgomery department store, and she was going home on the bus. And of course, the bus was full and she was told to give her seat up. And as we all know, she refused to do that. Well, she was arrested. And quite frankly, that is really where Martin really started his active involvement in the civil rights movement, because he led a boycott of the Montgomery transportation system. And this did impact them financially, economically, and whatever. And this ended up becoming a success, even though Martin was charged with and was going to be arrested for this. However, the Constitution had already legislated at some point during that time that it was unconstitutional for this to happen, for they have to give up their seat on for buses to be, the transportation system to be segregated. So that ended that right quick. Another experience in Martin's life, I kind of got a snippet of that as I did a research. There's many documentaries on Martin Luther King's life, as we all know. I just kind of picked some that touched me. There was an incident, a time where he was signing books after a lecture, and someone walked up to him and asked him, "Are you Martin Luther King?" Well, Martin didn't look up. He kept signing. He said, "Yes, I am." And of course, that incident was where he was actually stabbed in the chest. And while in the hospital, he did get many letters encouraging him and praising him and whatever. But he recalled one particular letter that stuck out with him, because all the other prestigious letters that he had gotten, those kind of passed and by the wayside. But the one he did remember was one from a ninth grader. And I want to just read what she said to him. She said that she was a ninth grader and she had heard about what had happened to him. And she said, "Although it's not of any particular importance, that I am white, by the way, and I'm glad that you didn't sneeze." That statement came because the doctors had told Martin that the knife had thrust so close to his aorta that if he had sneezed, it would have burst and he would have drowned in his own blood. And of course, the student had read that in the newspaper, and she wrote and she said, "I'm just glad you didn't sneeze." And of course, my response was, "I'm glad I didn't sneeze too." So that's just a couple of the events that really inspired Martin and led him down the path of fighting for racial injustice. So after that, I kind of looked at some things in Martin's various speeches. I Have a Dream. I've gone to the mountaintop. I've been to the mountaintop. There's some things in there that kind of touched me that really dealt on some of the issues of today. And probably most recent is the one that deals with Black Lives Matter, belonging and inclusiveness. And I will share with you, if I may, my thoughts on what I gleaned from Martin's speech. If we would take a moment to ponder the current issue of Black Lives Matter, we may be able to gain deeper, more meaning understanding of what it means based on the civil rights movement during the 1950s and 1960s. Blacks or Negroes were trained and instructed to use passive nonviolent protests to fight racial discrimination and segregation and oppression in the South. These things which were wrong in the eyes of God, those things which were wrong under the Constitution. So if we think about this, the Black Lives Matter thing was really part of the civil rights movement. It just wasn't stated as such. Of course, the issues that we deal with today is not so much the the issues of oppression or segregation, but certainly there's a significance to the Black Lives Matter, and I'll get into that more just in just a second. There's a quote I want to share on this topic that says, Martin stated, it says, "Our lives begin to end the day we remain silent about things that matter." Black lives matter, all lives matter. The issue happened to be at that time and that place dealing with what people who were called Negroes. I'll speak to that again shortly. The belonging and inclusiveness part, I want to share another quote. It says, Martin said, "Let us seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by not drinking. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy, which has engulfed the Negro community, must not lead us to distrust all white people. For many of our white brothers and sisters, as evidenced by their presence today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. That really touched me. Inclusiveness, where does that mean today? In essence, Martin may not have said it in using those words. I think we need to keep in mind that the issues of today that we deal with in our community as we try to help our community become more progressive, to make it more attractive as a place to live and where people are welcome and people are treated with respect and dignity, no matter who they are. That's where the belonging and inclusiveness inspiration comes from Martin's words. On the issue of being politically correct about race and ethnicity, my thoughts are, and what I will share with you, is our lineage descends from some other country far away. All of our lineage descends from some country far away. Doesn't matter what the circumstance is, but it's the fact. But the fact is we are all Americans. You may be Asian American, someone else may be Polish American or Irish American or Jewish American. I happen to be of African descent, which means that I am not a Negro, but an African American. The reason I say that is that Negro is not complimentary. It was part of the ways and mores of the South, and that was acceptable. But today, that is no longer acceptable to refer to an African American as a Negro. And matter of fact, it diminishes the race itself, just to share that with you. My final thought on that, on race and on being politically correct about race and ethnicity, is that I'm going to go with exactly what was taken from Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech. As far as me and my relationships with my brothers and sisters of all ethnicities and race and genders, that I would rather be recognized by the content of my character. That is my quest in life as a person, and I would encourage others to consider that thought. So in closing, on this presentation, we learned in history, back in our history in school and everything, that America, it was a melting pot where people from immigrants from all backgrounds came to America for the pursued life, liberty, and happiness. The Statue of Liberty represents that in the New York Harbor. And to assimilate or blend into one people as an American. But I urge us all to consider that as a nation, we have become more like what is called a mulligan stew. Many different vegetables, whatever, but in a mulligan stew, a carrot can still be a carrot and a potato can still be a potato, but both adds to the flavor of the meal. Scott, that is the end of my presentation. I thank you, and I certainly hope that someone can find some value in that, but I am truly, these are some of my thoughts and my feelings on the issue, on the matter, and I think we have a lot of work to do. We've come a long way, but we still have some progress to make. I'm not holding anybody else responsible for that. I think I have an equal obligation, responsibility to make a contribution. Thank you.
Eddie, I appreciate it. Thank you again for your insight. And again, I'll be twisting your arm to run for city council someday, so I appreciate it. So thanks for joining us this evening.
Okay, with that, I will sign off unless you have something else.
Nope, that's it. We appreciate your time this evening.
Well, thank you, City Council.
Thank you. Thank your family for letting you go for a few minutes.
Okay,
Have a good night. Okay. thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good night. I actually realized, I think I missed the approve of the agenda.
Mhm.
So how about if I get somebody to approve the agenda for me?
This is Jeff Arnold. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Steve Slack, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. If there are no changes or additions, this will be a roll call, please.
All right. Reeser,
Yes.
Schlack,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. That will take us to the consent agenda, items A through G.
Stuart Sleeper, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through G.
Joe Reeser, I'll second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this will be a roll call, please.
Reeser,
Yes.
Schlack,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. That takes us to new business. City Council will be asked to receive the 2020 Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals annual report and place it on file. So just need a motion and a second to that effect.
This is Jeff Arnold. I'll make a motion that we accept the Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals annual report.
George Sleeper, second.
We have a motion, we have a second, and Kate and whoever else is presenting.
Well, Mayor, I will have Travis jump in here as the new zoning administrator to briefly go over what is in the report and what was done last year by the Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. Travis?
Yep. So this is the report that is required by the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. This report has to be delivered to both the Planning Commission and the City Council in January of the new year. And so I'll just give you a brief overview of what we've got in it. Just to look at what the Planning Commission took on this year. In summary, there were 4 applications for special land use permits. Those 4 were all approved. There were 15 applications for site plan review. 13 of those were approved. 1 was denied. 1 was a preliminary review. There were 9 proposals for ordinance text amendments. 8 of those were approved. 1 of those was postponed for further discussion. And there were 2 PUD master deed amendments that were brought to the Planning Commission. Those 2 applications were both approved, but I put in there of note is that 1 of those approvals was actually essentially a rescinding of a previously approved PUD amendment. In addition, we give a summary of what the Zoning Board of Appeals took on in the last year as well. And just to cover that quickly, the ZBA received 2 applications for land use variances. 1 of those was referred to the Planning Commission for their study. 1 was withdrawn. That one that was referred to the Planning Commission was also withdrawn once it went to the Planning Commission level. There were 7 applications received for dimensional variances, and so all of those 7 were approved. That's just a brief summary. If anybody has any questions, I can try to answer them.
Any questions? All quiet at this moment. All right. Any, I guess this time, public comments. Again, you can raise your hand on the screen or *9, Kate?
Right, you can raise your hand using the icon at the bottom of your screen, or you can dial *9 on your telephone to raise your hand. And I see at least one person, if you're ready, sir. Looks like Mitch has his hand up. So Mitch, I'll be asking you to unmute. You've got 5 minutes, Mitch.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Denise Mitchell, and I reside at 72300 Erica Way here in South Haven. And I would like to pay tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with a reading of one of his quotes.
Can you do me a favor? Sorry. We're actually within our council agenda right now. We are discussing an item specifically related to our Planning Commission Zoning Board of Appeals report, but
I'm sorry.
that's okay. We'd love to hear your comments. That will occur. Let's see here, item 13. So if you can just hang tight to item 13, we will call you right back up.
Thank you.
You got it.
I
All
see another caller that has their hand up. I'm not sure. I'll ask them to unmute.
Perfect. And again, let's just clarify, we're discussing item 6, the 2020 Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals annual report. That's the item we're discussing right now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'd like to pay tribute to Dr. King.
Perfect. We will be back to that at item 13 in just a little bit. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. All right.
I don't see any other hands raised on this item, sir.
Okay. Council, no comments. We're through the public, so we have a motion and a second. This will be a roll call to put these reports on file.
Black,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
yes,
Arnold,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Next item, City Council will be asked to consider a motion to introduce the Health Services Zoning District. So we get a motion in a second to get this discussion started.
This is George Sleeper. I make a motion to introduce the Health Services Zoning District.
Joe Reeser, I'll second it.
We have a motion and we have a second. So Kate, I know, are you able to, Steve had asked, do we have the map of this that you can pull up for tonight?
Well, to address that, I have Attorney Curcio on this meeting, but really we're talking about the zoning district creation, and we were going to bring the parcels that would be eventually asked to rezone later on to minimize confusion. At the Planning Commission level, this caused quite a bit of confusion about the district creation versus which parcels would be in it. The idea was that we would zone parcels that could be in PB1 or over there by the Bronson Hospital. That zone was kind of identified in the master plan as being a place where this health services district would most likely affect. Nick, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. So the staff report notes that there has been a map prepared, and it was included in the Planning Commission materials, kind of as a preliminary vision of what this district would look like. It included parcels, it mostly consisted of parcels that are currently PB1, but also included, to back up a little bit, actually included all parcels that are zoned PB1. So the idea is that this zoning district might eventually replace the PB1 zoning district entirely. It also included a few parcels that are currently B2 and RM1. But again, that's something the Planning Commission is planning to look at a later date once the district is established, so that they can have a discussion that just focuses on which parcels to include as opposed to what the regulations would be for those parcels. So we'd be happy to put the preliminary map in the next packet, but again, it would be just a preliminary map. There'll be a separate process for rezoning.
Perfect. And then Kate and Nick, between the two of you, could you just share kind of with, so the public could understand the benefits of creating such a district?
So this is the concept for this district comes directly from the master plan. The master plan proposes a district specifically for the health service related businesses in the city, as well as for businesses that support health service related uses. And those would include restaurants, pharmacies. There's a list of things here. Health clubs for hospital employees, behavioral clinics. So it's a pretty broad list of everything related to the medical industry, plus some supporting industries as well. And the idea being, I think, at least what the master plan says, there's already substantial amounts of clustering going on in this particular area of the city, but it's happening across 3 different zoning districts. And it just makes sense to kind of create a single zoning district that's specifically focused on allowing those types of uses and organizing them appropriately. Also, one impetus for bringing this now is that the Bronson Hospital is moved to a new location, and eventually the parcel on which the old hospital is located will be redeveloped by Bronson or a successor in interest to Bronson. And Bronson directly approached the city and asked that we kind of take a look at what uses might be able to go there. So that kind of got the ball rolling on creating this concept that was mentioned in the master plan.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that's important, just as people realize the hospital will be coming down and the future use of that land is part of what we're discussing here. So thank you, Nick, for that clarification. All right, I think that's pretty good. Is that what you guys had for summary so far? And if so, I'll see if we've got any public or council comments.
We have a council comment from Steve.
Steve.
I just wanted for the public's sense to ask who Nick Curcio was.
Oh,
Or is.
The city attorney.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, the Zoom thing, I forget. We still gotta remember who's who up here. Why don't we go ahead, just take some public comments, then we can come back to council comments. So again, you can raise your hand via the icon or the *9 to contact us to make comments again regarding the health services zoning district.
I don't see any hands raised right now, or I don't see anyone dialing *9 for the health services district item, sir.
Okay. Any other council comments at this time? All's quiet. I will chime in. I do think it's important that we cluster this. It makes sense for the overall area there. That neighborhood does have a variety of different zoning types. And so I think as you look forward to the redevelopment of this site, the removal of the old hospital, the addition of the wound care building, that we try to create some synergies with those zoning types and make this all, clean it up. So we have a motion, we have a second to introduce the health services zoning district, and I need a roll call, please.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Schlack,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Next item, city council will be asked to receive the the short-term rental snapshot report and supplementary report. And I have this down as a motion item. It's just a report. Well, let's do it. Let's do it because we'll note that we received it. So let's just get a motion to at least get the report, and then we'll close it down. Then we'll come to the next item, which is the discussion. So motion to receive and put it on file.
This is George Sleeper. I make a motion to accept the short-term rental snapshot report.
John
Steve
Fowler.
Slack, I'll second.
Perfect. We have a motion. We have a second. So Kate, I know we've got Nick on the phone. Why don't we go ahead and walk through the report and we'll discuss what to do with that report.
Sure, Nick is here, and also Travis, this was kind of Travis putting this together, and we'll have Travis kind of go through the report and see what he's come up with. Travis, you want to go ahead and walk through your report?
Yep, so putting this together was kind of a collaboration between the building department and primarily we worked with Ryan Bosher over at Public Works. What you can see is it looks a lot like the report from last year. We basically followed the same format, but we did add in a chart that I think simplifies some things, or at least gives you the major numbers that you're looking for. If you look at page 66 of the packet, you'll see the non-exempt business short-term rental statistics. Those are the numbers there that I think you're likely to have the most interest in. And I can just briefly go through them. As you can see, you've got, as of the 2019 census numbers that we received at the beginning of last week, right now, we have 3,502 housing units within the city. When you look at that total, you would take away the 57 units that are currently included in the PUD areas that are excluded from the calculation. So you take those 57 out, and then those additional 626 that are attached condo units that are currently also excluded from the 1-to-4 ratio. That leaves you with a total of 2,819 housing units that the 1-to-4 is based on. What that leaves based on the 2019 census numbers is a total of 564 non-exempt business certificates available in total. Currently, 319 of those are spoken for, so those are already either issued or on hold, leaving us with an additional 245 that will be available for the coming year.
Steve's got your hand up.
I was just wondering how the 57 units that were subtracted in the PUDs, also the condo units, 626, I think you said, condo units were subtracted as well from that. How did you make, some of the condominium units are also in the PUDs, so how did you separate that out? How did you take that into consideration?
I think I
Were the
can.
PUDs separated from the condominium units, or so they
Yes.
were counted separate?
Yes, actually, this kind of jumps forward, but there's a good breakdown as to how we got to those numbers, the 57 and the 626. If you look at page 77 of your packet, that kind of breaks out how we got to those particular numbers from the excluded PUD units as well as the excluded attached condo units. Those are listed out and their numbers come up to the numbers 57 and 626 that were accepted out.
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other council questions, comments? That's the current ones. And then are you going to discuss the potential ones now, Travis, or would you like us to discuss that in a minute? I just didn't know when you were going to plan on talking about that.
Yeah, so I think right now we'll just focus on just the report as it is right now. And then I think agenda item 9 is.
We can pull that up. Okay.
Yep.
I guess for the group, are there any questions on the current one? I'm not seeing any questions on the current one. See now, how about public comments again on the current statistics? Are there any public comments on that? So again, that would be raise your hand via the icon or *9.
No comments so far, sir.
Okay. Give just a few more seconds, and then what we'll do is we'll We'll call this one and we'll roll on to item 9. All right, why don't we go ahead? Let's go ahead and just roll call the fact that we've received that report and we'll put it on file.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Schlack,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Next item. City Council will be asked to discuss and provide further directions regarding potential changes to the short-term rental capping formula. So why don't we go ahead? I think I'll start. I'll just throw out a few comments based on, I can share a little bit of how we got here. And then if someone has a motion, we can discuss where to go. Because I've got a few items I want to discuss. Specifically, we came to the realization as we reviewed these numbers that there was, I consider to be an irregularity, or let's just call it an error. So we've had a priority for housing, understanding our housing needs, to improve housing options for a couple years now. So it's been a top priority. When we looked at rentals a few years back, we specifically created the 4-to-1 ratio. Part of the thought was it was to create a balance. Some of us would also argue it puts kind of aligns our incentives. So if we're building more homes, we could have more rentals. So the intention of, I would argue many of us when that was done, was we were looking at our single family residential neighborhoods. Well, in our single family homes specifically, detached single family homes. We intentionally split out condominiums, as you know, Steve was just asking, how did we get the condo numbers? So condos were split out very specifically because really they have not been traditionally the problem. So as we started looking at the numbers, we realized that part of the formula included apartments and non-rentable units, including, and if you look at that list there of, again, this is in the supplementary report, we have Briar Hills, we have Harbor View, River Terrace, which are housing commission units, River Ridge Retirement Village. We have various housing commission scattered site homes. So clearly it really just skews the numbers in my view. And I've had that question asked. And so I think the planning commission looked at it, they would, there was some concern. So my argument here is, if we want good data, we've got to make sure the numbers are right. So some of these units are not rentable. I feel that they should probably be, they should be removed. And the only question I would have is, this mentions apartment units of 12 units or greater. I'm wondering why we couldn't, it really should probably be apartments of 2 units or greater. Just because I think these larger apartment complexes, again, this just skews the data. We're really talking about single family homes, and we're talking about our neighborhoods, because that's kind of what it's always been about. So there's issue 1. I would like to, say we should at least get the ratio number right. And again, it's just to get the numbers accurate, that's all. And I think if we adjust this, there's still a lot of capacity with additional rentals, so it just corrects the number. I think also I would recommend we make a suggestion to look at the cost. It's costing to run the STR program, and I would suggest that we look at reducing the frequency of inspections to every 2 years for business and 3 years for personal, in order to keep the cost down. And I know that's been a concern of some of the short-term rental owners, that the frequency of inspections is too high. So I would, again, it's just something to discuss here in a minute. 2 more items real quick. As long as the PC is going to be taking a look at a couple items, as we look at apartment complexes, it's just whether or not it's time to consider a registration process for our long-term rentals. We looked at short-term rental registration for safety. I think the argument could be made that it might be time to look at the long-term rental ones as well. And it will also help us make better decisions and help us understand, again, where are these units within our town as we go to make decisions on future housing developments. And then finally, one last item, sorry, and I'll be done. As long as PC is going to be taking a peek. This has come up a few times lately, and this is downtown dwelling units and parking. we changed the language for 2 parking spaces to 1 to encourage downtown dwelling. Specifically, we were hoping to get folks to move downtown, rent long-term, live downtown, create condos downtown. We're seeing increased activity, which is great. Downtown looks great. I just want to make sure I'd be looking for some planning commission direction on transient lodging. And I believe, Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, we already have a hotel's address, but the question would be, what about other short-term lodging? The goal is to get people living downtown. That's why we reduced that number. So I've got 4 different things that are going to go in there, but obviously the first one is relative to the ratio. I'll leave it to that, but I want to mention those other items as long as PC's got this. There's my first thoughts. I will defer to other council comments at this time, and then we'll get a motion to see what we want to do. Joe Reeser.
So I just want to be clear on numbers. So right now we're at 2,819 possible homes. We're going to subtract, as you said, the apartments, which I think the number I was given was 344. We talked about taking out the low-income homes, what some people call scattered homes. That's 42. If you subtract those 2, the new total inventory of homes to be used in the ratio or the denominator would be 2,433. Does that sound right?
That's correct.
Okay, just want to be certain on the actual numbers. So then if we took 20% of that, the new number would be 487.
Correct.
And right now, if I'm not mistaken, as of 1/4, we have 502.
564, I think, is what the report says.
Yes,
Allowable.
but 564 allowed right now. Yep.
So does that mean then we freeze it until it gets down to 487 based on a 20%?
No, you're looking at allowable.
Yes, allowable.
This is also talking about the rental ratio. We still have exempted properties and attached condos. So 20% of the 2,433 would be 487. Currently, we have 319 that fall in that category. So there would be a further 168 that would be business, not exempt business permits. That also, I believe, so we could have more business exempt, so more PUD houses in the 4 PUDs. Additionally, there could be more attached attached condos. And I believe that also would allow for personals.
Okay.
Is that correct, Nick?
Yes. So 319, just to clarify, 319 is the number currently existing in this category. And we'd be talking about moving from 564 allowable to 487 allowable. So in either case, there's still a significant number allowable in excess of the 319 existing.
There's still a fair amount of capacity. And again, this is why I think at some point in time, we need to get an understanding of the long-term rentals, because I know right now this is 12 units or more. I guess as I said before, I think I'd like to see that number maybe 2 or more. I understand the challenge of single family homes, but if we could identify apartment complexes 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, they should not be in this mix, because again, we're talking about single family residential detached homes. I want to be crystal clear. That's the only thing I'm worried about. So
I can't speak to this issue quite as well as Ryan Bosher could. I don't believe he's on the call, but I do know that that was for kind of ease of administration, that the numbers of apartment complexes and dwellings less than 12 is not something that the city necessarily knows with absolute certainty. And that 12 number came from the ability to be positive that that's the correct number. I think anything lower than that, it could be difficult. I think 1 and 2 are very difficult because those are scattered throughout. But I think what Ryan was saying was even somewhat smaller ones could be in other zoning districts and not necessarily in ones the city has kind of on its radar. But it's probably possible we could find them, but that wasn't data we had immediately available.
Right. And again, that may be more of a future planning question as far as the long-term rental question. I'm throwing that out mainly just for, as we think of planning and future housing developments, and the data we've got already is fantastic. And I commend Ryan for putting it together, because I think we understand a lot better today than we did when this all started, where units are and what we've got. So I'll leave it at that. Any other questions of the group?
Looks like Steve has his hand up and George has his hand up.
Mr. Schley.
Just listening to Mr. Curcio, I'm wondering, if the city can't verify the number of apartments, how can we enforce this?
So we can verify that the proposal would be to define what we're excluding as apartments and complexes with 12 units or more, and staff is confident about that number. That's why that's the recommendation, as opposed to going down.
What does what does that mean? Staff is confident.
Ryan Bosher did the figures, but he told me that that's a list that we already have, and that I believe he said he's certain that there's no other ones that would meet that definition.
Thank you.
Correct. George, you had your hand up too, correct?
Yeah, just something that came into my mind. So say somebody, for example, wants to do a business short-term rental in one of the PUDs that's excluded. Does that mean that business short-term rental does not get included in the total number of business short-term rentals, and that it wouldn't be subject to like the registration and inspection and stuff like that?
That's correct. They're excluded from both kind of the numerator and the denominator. Short-term rentals can be established in those excluded PUDs, and it doesn't affect the ratio one way or the other.
I think, George, were you asking, are they exempt from all the fees and the inspection process?
No, they still have to pay their fees and be inspected.
Right. I thought that's what George had asked. Sorry, I want to clarify George's question.
Yeah, it was both. I just wanted to see if so we don't count them, but we still inspect them.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
They're just excluded from the capping formula.
And again, just another, kind of coming back, the apartments reminded me, that was one of the reasons this had come up also, was when we built 335 centers, we were looking at numbers. It was mentioned that, hey, by the way, this will actually in fact inflate the other formula, to which that sort of again raised some questions, and we were trying to explain to folks why apartments were included. And so anyway, just to be clear. Any other questions? Like I said, at some point in time, I'll need, if there's any interest in, I know I mentioned a few other things, that I can bring those up at another, after we get one motion. But the first question is, is there any direction regarding potential changes as far as removing those apartment complexes? Again, specifically, we have, if you read over that list again, Briar Hills, Dockside, Harbor View, which Housing Commission, Maple Glen, River Ridge Retirement Village, River Terrace, which is again a Housing Commission, 335 Center, and then Village View Apartments.
If you're asking for further direction, I would be against any changes to the short-term rental capping formula. I think we would have to go through a whole zoning ordinance change. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Reeser, you got your hand up.
Just a quick clarification. Maybe everyone understands this, but I'm a little confused. PUDs, clearly, if they wanted to do a short-term rental, they can, because they're self-regulating, but the PUD units will have to pay the fees. We established that. Condos, if a condo building allowed an individual condo to do a short-term rental, I assume that is allowed because they're self-regulating. But if they did it, would they have to pay the fees?
Yes, condos are still, we still are regulating condos, and the fee structure and whatnot is all established. So yes.
Thanks.
Kate, you want to elaborate, but
Yes, just to elaborate, if you're getting a permit from the city, you have to pay your $500 and pass an inspection. And what you pay for your inspection, or I'm sorry, for your permit fee is depending on the use type that you're looking for. Right, and then as for the PUDs, only 4 of the PUDs that are in the city are exempted out as not being part of the capping formula. Those are Trailside or Everett Park, Harbor Club, which is the preserve at Woodland Harbor, Maplegate, and Sherman Hills.
Scott?
yes.
Yeah, just one other thing. I agree with Steve that at this time, this is not the time to change percentages, absolute numbers, or anything else of that type. I think as much as I worry about short-term rentals, a number of them in this town, as do a lot of residents, I think all businesses, including short-term rentals, are suffering because of the pandemic. Everyone's trying to get back on their feet, and hopefully the vaccine will help businesses and help the short-term rentals. So I don't think this is the time that we should revisit changing percentages or absolute numbers other than the denominator, so we're all on the same page.
Okay, so guys, clarify that, other than the denominator. So I guess, are you wanting to address the non-rentable items as just discussed? And if so, I will, at some point in time, I'll need a motion as far as giving planning commission some direction on that, as well as if the city council wants to, I guess, Kate, I'll ask you to jump in on the fees here in a second, as far as giving direction to planning commission on that as well.
You want me to clarify it?
Yeah, I guess, Joe,
All right, so let me make it simple. We went from the 3502 to 2819. We took off the apartments and the scattered homes. We got it down to 2433, which changes the denominator. I'm all for doing that so we can somehow get the right number in here, but I'm not for changing the percentage. I'm not for looking at the whole short-term rental proposition right now, other than getting the numbers correct where we're at now. But I don't think this is the time to be changing and asking council to reduce the number of short-term rentals in this town, other than getting the numbers right. Because I don't think this is a good time to restrict anything, because everyone's trying to get back after a pandemic, including short-term rentals.
okay. So I guess in a minute, I'll just, if you or somebody wants to make a motion to that effect, if you want to, in fact, address the denominator, as you just said, we'll just need a motion to that effect.
Mr. Mayor, this is Steve Schlack. Even if we change the denominator, doesn't that open up the whole ordinance? To have to change the ordinance?
It's, yeah, that's kind of why we're discussing this, and that's why I want Kate to also jump in on the fees here in a second, so we can, I'm just trying to pick this apart a little bit, so we can, because we're gonna have to contend with the fees at some point in time anyway. So Kate, you want to chime in on that real quick?
Right, so in Travis's report, on the very last page, we show the short-term rental revenues and expenditures for that program. For revenues this year, include for business and personal, by the way, I'm on page 73 of the packet. For personal and business, we received $206,300 for the program. Our expenses, however, exceeded that number by $100,779. We did note that the number of, that we've seen a decrease in the overall numbers of the short-term rental permits, particularly of the business permits. There's a number of those factors, but we are seeing that we're not bringing in as much revenue versus the expenses. So if we're looking at, are we looking at, I'm sure that Planning Commission will look at the denominator if that's what the council is asking the Planning Commission to do. But we will include this revenue and expenditure report to go along with that. If the council is looking at doing decreased number of or rental inspections, not every year, we'll have to find a way to make up that shortfall, which will probably grow if you're not having, we'll still have to have staff on hand. Plus, we've made agreements with Shays to have fire inspectors hired for our projected inspections.
And so again, I guess one option, by reducing the number of inspections, that should theoretically start to decrease staff time and cost. So that was one way to get at it. So that's just one pot. And again, the goal would be to ask the planning commission to consider a reduction in inspection. That's just one example. I know I've had that concern raised by folks at short-term rent that, you know, the inspections are too frequent, which is just burdensome to them. So I think we could address their concerns as well as start cutting our costs, because the goal was not to make a costly program and, you know, add a lot of staff. The goal was just to ensure safety and make sure we understood where these units were. So that's yet again, that's a second item we could have them look at, because we have to get the cost item under control, because we do not want to be running a deficit. So we could have them look at the denominator. We could have them look at the fee structure. That's another potential item. Comments? Mr. Reeser.
I thought it was agreed a couple of years ago that we would look at this thing every year or two and make sure the city wasn't paying with taxpayers' dollars to manage the short-term rentals. So we clearly know the city has been, the city has lost $100,000 of taxpayers' money. That's already lost. We got to make it up. So I say this year we have to raise the fees to get the $100,000 back. If next year the city has a surplus, we drop them again. But this has to be reviewed every year and changed every year based on the cost of the program. And I think that's only fair. I don't want to see taxpayers pay for short-term rental management, the managing of this program. And right now, the taxpayers have lost $100,000.
So again, part of this will be let planning commission take one shot, because clearly we've got to cut the fees down. And so there's a couple ways we can get at that. So I guess that will be another item to planning commission consider reduction in rental inspections to get those costs down. That's yet another way to get to it. All right, Mr. Schlack.
Two questions, probably one for the city attorney and one possibly for Kate. I guess if we've lost $100,000, I'd like to know where that came from to pay that $100,000, if it came out from the Shays budget or where it came from. And then secondly, probably for the city manager or for the city attorney, if I remember right, in the original ordinance, we're allowed to change the structure of the fees and stuff without an ordinance change. But I still haven't got my question answered that I'm wondering about regarding any changes to the ratios or numbers of housing units or anything like that. That would have to be an ordinance change, correct? After it goes through planning commission and all that?
Yes, that's the zoning ordinance amendment.
Thank you.
And Steve, as to yours, I'm going to believe that the overages were taken out of the general fund. We made an agreement with Shays. I think we guaranteed up to 3 years. We knew a minimum number of inspections. So this was the inspection guarantee on there shows another 24,000 this year, because we did see a decrease in the number of short-term rental business permits. We did see a shortfall in that program, but we also did know that when we set the $500 limit, that was not going to get, it was likely not going to cover everything, but we knew that $500 coming from a $20 annual fee was quite a jump. So this would be a good time to revisit those fees, as Mr. Reeser had said.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. I guess any other discussion?
Looks like Joe has his hand up, sir.
Oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to do this from memory, but when we went over the financial reports for the city, I remember asking a question about safety, how the cost of safety in the city has gone up every year. And I wasn't complaining. I just wanted to know if it went up as a percentage of total revenue. And I got a graph back and it looked fine. But in those numbers that where it keeps going up for safety, are you saying then, Kate or Mr. Mayor, that the cost of the short-term rental is then built into that, is part of those numbers? Did I hear that, or am I misunderstanding?
No, public safety is a different fund. This was not part of public safety.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So I guess, Kate, to speed this along here, we can ask Planning Commission to review anything, obviously within reason, that that the council has a desire. So at this point in time, I guess I'll say if there's any interest in either looking at the denominator, I would need a motion. If there's an interest in looking at the fee structure to include, again, if we reduce the rental inspection frequency, that would require a zoning change because that's different, if I'm not correct, Kate. That's one reason I'm suggesting we would give that to PC to consider reducing the inspections to get those costs down. Again, I'm trying to lower costs by reducing staff time. That's one of my long-term goals here. And I would argue that once we've inspected them one time, we could probably do less frequent inspections.
Do you want to take any public comment, sir?
What's that? Yeah, I guess let's do that right now.
Okay. If you are on Zoom, just go ahead and raise your hand with the little yellow icon at the bottom, or if you're on a telephone, just dial *9. Looks like we have one caller, Gerald Webb. I'll go ahead and ask Gerald to go ahead and unmute.
Good evening, Gerald Webb.
Hi there. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you. Good evening.
Good evening. I have a series of questions that I'm hoping you can answer, and there is a point to all of them. First one, should we remind ourselves why we implemented the short-term rental ordinance? You touched on it a little bit in the beginning, I think, Mr. Mayor, but I think it's important to go back to the end in mind as we talk about all these little details in between. Does anybody want to answer that, or do you want me just to speak to it from my memory?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were, I was waiting for you to go rip through some questions. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was one of them.
Well, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what was the point of our short-term rental ordinance? What were we trying to accomplish?
Well, I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to take a shot. I mean, as I was one of the people that was, in those discussions right off the bat, the concern at the time was a better understanding of our rental industry, the business of short-term rentals, the location of short-term rentals, to better understand the impacts of short-term rentals on our neighborhoods, on our school systems, and all that good stuff. Ultimately, to create a balance between what is a rental activity and a non-rental activity in our residential districts.
And safety.
Okay, so we haven't talked about any of that tonight, and we're talking about revisiting the ordinance. So I don't even, have we accomplished our goal? I think the other goal, by the way, was that we wanted to encourage more young full-time families to the city. So I dare to challenge the city to answer the questions associated with the original goal. If we have a lot of data, we should have that data to see if we're accomplishing what we set out to accomplish. I mean, I hope everybody finds that to be a reasonable ask. That should be the discussion. Because what I heard is business permits went down. If you look at the nuisance data, if you want to call it that, really didn't exist in the first place, but it's minimal to nothing. I would imagine we're not measuring, although we should be, how many new young families have come to town since we passed our ordinance. I would venture to say the number's probably 0 to very few. We've probably brought more retired type folks to town because they've left the city move to their second home. That's part of the reason I think the permits are down. And then I want to point out too, we talk about safety. I think Mr. Reeser just brought up safety. If you were to measure how much time and money we spend on the subject of short-term rentals between inspections and this time of staff and city government right now, measure that relative to how much time we spend on things where people actually die, which is drowning in the lake. If you want to get some data, how many people have drowned in the lake in the last 150 years? How many people have died or been seriously hurt in a short-term rental in the last 150 years? You look at the proportionality between time and dollars spent on those two subjects alone, I will tell you the city's got its priorities in the wrong place, as one example.
Okay, and then Gerald, you got about a minute, my friend.
The last item I'm going to mention is that you can't rely on your inspection pass-fail ratio, because the inspection from 1 year to the next is entirely inconsistent. A lot of individuals don't get to see it. I get the chance to view about 35 rental inspections a year, and you can inspect the same home in the same circumstances, no changes. 1 year it'll pass, 1 year it'll fail. So that's an unreliable piece of information. In my opinion, the city should inspect the home when they issue an initial permit, and that's it. And again, I ask that you look at the priorities the city has and all the time and effort we're spending on this relative to some other things the city could be doing with that time, energy, and resources that is misplaced. Thank you.
That's the time.
Thanks, Gerald. Appreciate it. Sorry we lost a little bit toward the end there. I will just make kind of one follow-up comment, because his points on some of the other stats, we were hoping to have had the Upjohn Institute has put together some data for us on some of the information. We're trying to overlay school enrollment and whatnot, the ability to figure out young families and whatnot. I wish we could readily get that information, but we can track school enrollment and other things. And yeah, we are challenged. Our housing, I mean, everyone's read in the newspaper what's happening to our housing prices, and it's challenging right now in this community because of the impacts of that beautiful lake of ours is drives up housing costs. So anyway, we hope to have some Upjohn Institute, a report that'll hopefully at least overlay some of the data for us.
Okay.
Other public comments?
We have Rosalie. I'll go ahead and ask Rosalie to unmute.
Hey, everybody. Good evening. I wanted to thank Ryan and all the staff that put together this report. It is complicated, but really when you just take it apart and look at what needs to be corrected, it isn't. I think as a city municipality, we should be correct in every number we put out in the community. So I do hope that we can get that settled. And as far as why this is so important, right now, short-term rentals are our industry, and we have to take it seriously, and we have to be correct, and we have to see it in relationship to all of our residents. So again, I applaud you for taking this on. As a planning commissioner, I'm ready, but thank you. And we'll get this cleaned up and we'll send it back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosalie. Anybody else?
I don't see any other hands raised, sir.
All right. I will ask the question one more time and then.
Oh, sorry. I just see Amanda just put her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Amanda. Good evening.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Okay, hi. Sorry, it's ridiculous to raise your hand when you're not on video. So that's what I was trying to do. I was not able to pull up the report So you probably have some answers to some of my questions, but for some reason I couldn't get the report to come up. But how many permits were applied for in 2020 and how many were given out? Do you know that number?
I don't believe I know the number of permits that were applied for and given out. I know that we have 319 that are certified and some are on hold. So if you're on hold, that may mean that you have not completed all of your requirements. So there's that. But I don't know of anybody who, I don't know the numbers right now offhand of who have applied but didn't, to who haven't complete like. finished.
Okay.
319 is where we are right now, if that helps.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's total, correct?
Correct. Business.
Okay, so I guess and we said the number of permits that were given out in 2020, it was down from 2019, correct?
Yes, when I say down, it's not so much that we had decreased number of people applying. We saw a number of people who were giving up their permits or just saying that they didn't want to rent anymore or didn't want to either comply with the ordinance or combining. So there was a number of factors as to why that number decreased.
Okay, but we don't know what that number is. That's what I'm trying to get to. So we don't know if there were 100 permits given in 2020 or 50 permits given.
Actually, I believe we do. There was a 19% decrease from the 619 short-term rental permits in December 2019 to the, to what the numbers are today, if that's correct. Travis, do you remember, if you can speak to your report here on page 68 from the difference from 2019 to 2020? And by the way, Amanda, is there a question we got to get to, because you've got about 2.5 minutes left?
Okay, all right, yes. So what I'm trying to get to is how many permits and how many inspections were done, because according to some of the folks that I talked to, there were quite a few inspections from 2019 that actually went into 2020 because the city was so far behind. So if we're looking at cost for 2020, I think some of that, if that is correct, some of that cost was actually from 2019 because it was a delay in getting those inspections done. So if we determine how many permits that we did in 2020 and how many inspections and what that cost is, then I think that you've got a better number of income versus expenses, because normally you wouldn't have that delay of money, of inspections. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
I saw somebody nod, so I'm going with it. And again, just for clarification, the 319 permits do not include the permits from the PUDs or the permits, the condos. Correct? Okay, good. And the other, okay, so a couple of those I can't answer because we don't know the answer to the first question. So, and the only other thing was there are several communities that are doing the same type of inspections that we are. They outsource those inspections. There's a couple companies that are doing these type of inspections. They do them exactly to the specifications of the city, but it is much less expensive and it's becoming more efficient. So just the question out there, is anybody considered outsourcing these inspections so it's more efficient? It doesn't cost the taxpayer so much money. That's it. Thank you.
Amanda, that's a very good question. And maybe send us that information, because clearly we've got to get these costs in line. So
yep, I agree.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the call. Any other public comments?
Yes, we do. We have David Veenstra. I forgot that we have not been asking for our names and addresses, so we'll make sure that we do that.
Thanks, Kate.
David Veenstra, I'm going to ask you to unmute. If you can state I think it's David Veenstra, your name and your address, please.
David Veenstra, 1220 Monroe Boulevard. Do you have me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. I would like to speak in support of Joe Reeser's comment that since the city ran a deficit of $100,000, which we as taxpayers are responsible for, I would like to see that recovered through raising the fees on the STRs. I don't see any reason why the taxpayers should support that. And once we've recovered that money, we can look for a different solution going forward. But I don't see any reason to have the taxpayers support the short-term rental program, which it has done now over the last year. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other public comments? Okay.
I think Amanda already spoke, but I'm not sure if this is Amanda Sukup, but this is Amanda with their hand up. If you've already spoken, we've already taken your comment, but I'll mute to see if this is a different Amanda. This is Amanda. Go ahead and speak. If you can state your name and your address.
This is another Amanda. What do you know?
there
There's
you
more
go.
than one in this town.
All right, go ahead, Amanda. And I think this is Amanda Creedon, right?
This is Amanda Creedon, 321 Pearl Street.
Hello, Amanda.
Hi. On behalf of Shores Vacation Rentals, I just want to let you guys know that we're in full support of safety inspections for vacation rentals. We have been at the table and encouraging this since this began in 2015. I think it was that November, that winter, if I remember correctly. But I do have to say, in looking at the numbers, this doesn't make sense. I don't believe, though, as Mr. Reeser and others have proposed, that raising the cost to get these inspections seems like the right direction to go, because you're actually looking in the wrong direction. Why would it take 3 people from the city to inspect a condo or a house? And if you read from the report, it takes 15 to 30 minutes to run through, especially when these are well established, they've been inspected previously. They go very, very quickly. It's a very efficient process. What's inefficient is the number of people that need to be there for it and the amount of time it takes to coordinate to just physically get from place to place. We've been very lucky working with Carol Mezak and other people from the city and helping coordinate our inspection times so that it doesn't take a long amount of time for our staff to be there. But we now have 4 human beings walking through looking at all the same things. And I'd like to propose that if there's going to be some analysis of these numbers, as Amanda Sukup suggested, certainly there were rollovers from 2019. And I think we need to be looking at how we can make this process a whole lot more efficient. I do agree that, as it's been suggested, that perhaps the number of times, the frequency of inspections could be reduced. There are not many changes that happen from year to year in these homes. The same window guards are in place, the same carbon monoxide and smoke detectors are all there. But if the city deems it important that you look every single year, that's okay too. But I don't see that raising the rate for inspections is really the right way to go. I'd also like to encourage you to consider looking into the safety of these, what we would say is long-term or yearly rentals. That's important. It never did make sense why in a vacation rental you have to have so many details done. And then when I personally had electrical work done this year, the same inspector, and an inspector for the city, was not asking the same questions. Seemed like a little bit of a double standard. And I think as a long-term renter, if you're renting half a house or an apartment or whatever it is, I think you should have the same expectations from the city if safety is really your goal. But that's all I wanted to say. And thank you to now Travis, and before him, David Wright and Carol Mezak, for helping our company get through all the inspections and requirements that are needed. They've been just outstanding people to work with. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it. And I would agree with you that we should be looking at cost containment, that's why I mentioned frequency reduction. I think Carol's concept of outsourcing, again, this would be something if there's some interest, and thanks for your comments on the long-term rental inspections. I would agree it's something that it might be something for the planning commission to consider. I think it's a reasonable expectation. So that was 3 of my items, and still the downtown dwelling would be item number 4. So I see if anyone is interested in throwing a motion out to have planning commission consider any of this stuff before we go on to the next item. I had 2 hands up. I had Joe and then I had George.
So I've got a proposed motion.
Yes, George.
So I'll make a motion to ask the planning commission to look at the short-term rental ordinance with the intent of looking at what housing units are excluded and the frequency of inspections.
That sounds good. Well, that's fine. Let's start with that. That's perfect.
This is Jeff Arnold. I'll second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to look at the included items as well as the frequency of inspections. Let's go with it. Oh,
Can't we also include in that the fees?
well, I think that's part of what we're getting at with the frequency of inspections. We're looking at fees and costs. So I mean, I think when planning commission gets it, they can look at, we heard tonight, outsourcing a couple other things. So if we look at frequency of inspections, we can see what they come back with.
And also, I think if based on what Steve was saying is true, we can look at the fees at any time. We don't need revision to the ordinance to look at fees.
Correct, unless the only reason we need it would be the inspection frequency. So that'd be one way to reduce the cost, and that would need to go to PC for an ordinance change. So in that regard, that's why we should give it to PC. That is a motion and a second. All right. Any public, sorry, not public, sorry. We've had public comment. Council discussion. Mr. Schlock, your hand is up.
Yes, before we vote on this as a council, whether to send it to planning commission or not, I would just, not knowing how the vote will go. I think once we get the program into a position where it's more of a stable amount of rental counts, I think we can look at the inspection, and whenever management or ownership changes could possibly be when a new inspection should take place. But I'm all for once we get to that point, I think it definitely makes sense to subcontract the inspections, because I don't think there will be as many. And again, the rental units the rental permits have went down. So I think if we do send it to planning commission, I would like to have them take that into consideration and try and handle this all in one swoop, rather than come back every year and have to change an ordinance. So if we could look at different ways of possibly subcontracting those inspections and maybe setting rules of when they have to be re-inspected, and that's up to planning commission. They can work through that. But my first 2 thoughts were a change of ownership or a change of management in that rental unit, then maybe it's time for a re-inspection. Otherwise, I agree with, I believe Mr. Webb said, inspect it once. I think another comment, I think maybe from Amanda, stated that a different person from the city came in and had different ideas, and I think that backs it up as well. So I think we need to make sure that the city inspection process is consistent. Just like a McDonald's cheeseburger, you got to be consistent. We have to get that straightened out, and I think once we get our units under a better grasp of how many we're going to have in the city and consistent, I don't think we need to have city staff or city employees doing the inspections. I think we can subcontract them out as necessary, somewhat like we do building permits and stuff like that in the past. That's my comment. Thank you.
Perfect. I almost asked George this question. Would you like him to just amend the motion to include outsourcing in addition to frequency, just to consider?
I think if you're gonna change the ordinance, I think we take the time and do it right. And do it complete, spend the time necessary. Again, I don't like spending all the time on it, but if we're gonna change it, if it's voted to go back to planning commission, I would like that included. And give them the ability to come back and amend the ordinance, propose amending the ordinance as they see fit to us. I think that's probably the most efficient way to do it rather than having it go back and forth. Maybe Mr. Curcio can help me on that. Thank you.
Scott?
Paul, I think he had a question for Nick, if Nick's still on the phone. So I mean, I think the question is just get it all done at once, which.
Yeah, I mean, procedurally, it would seem to make sense to just wrap everything together at once. Again, the fee item doesn't necessarily need to go to the planning commission, but these other things we're talking about would have to be an ordinance change. So it would make sense to package them together to the extent we can.
Okay. Sounds good. So George, any interest in amending that or in that motion to include consideration of outsourcing?
Yeah, actually, how I would like to amend my original motion was to look at the short-term rental ordinance with the intent of looking at what housing units are excluded and the inspection process. Instead of just looking at the frequency of inspections, just look at the whole inspection process. And that will include everything.
Gotcha. Okay. I guess that was your intention the first time. I'm sorry. Maybe I.
Well, no, I specifically said frequency, but Steve has a good point. You know, we can, if we're going to look at the inspection frequency, we can look at other aspects of the inspection also.
This is Jeff Arnold. I'll second.
Okay, so now we've got two things up. We've got the original, we've got the amended one, which I think that's kind of what I was looking for when we started this, was I think we've got to look at both. So that's good. Any discussion on the amended one, and we'll have to vote these both up. Joe had a question. Joe, question.
Yes, I've listened to everybody and I've come down with 4 pieces to it. And Rosalie said they're more than willing to go look at this. And if we're going to look at the whole ordinance, let's do the inspections, which would include an outside inspector, number of inspections, that covers both things. Let's look at the count, because Rosalie said it herself, this is important. Let's make sure we got the numbers right. Let's also, as Nick said, let's roll it all together. I think he was referring then to also looking at the fees. Why would we do it at a different time when we're doing everything else? And the last point I want to make, number 4, is let's consider timing. In fairness to the realtors, in fairness to short-term rental people, let's get this thing done in 60 days. Because it's not fair to go into the spring with some of these things being unknown. Let's get it to planning, make it a priority, get it back to us, and let's vote on it. So timing should be a part of what George just suggested. Make that part of it, the timing of it. Let's put a time cap on it or some idea on timing so we get it done quickly.
Okay, inspection process. All right, I've got a couple things out there. Any other discussion before we at least, I'll take a shot. I think we've got 2 things out there. We had the original and then we've got the amended. No other discussion. Kate, are you with me still?
I'd like to think so.
All right, shall we vote them both up? Or do we just need the amended one? The amended one is just a little more elaborate is all. So I don't know if we need them both, but I'm happy to vote them both up if we need to.
I think your amended one covers the original plus your amendment, so that might be the best one to make an action on.
I would agree. So the amended one, George, help me out here if I'm wrong, but we're looking at, again, looking at the formula, specifically that denominator, And then we were looking at the inspection process, which would include the frequency as well as the process of inspection, i.e. outsourcing and whatnot. So that's kind of what's sitting in front of us right now. As part of that, obviously, there's going to be a discussion of the fee process. So, I mean, I think that's going to be inherently taken care of. That's what I've got so far.
Yeah, that is what I add. That's my amended motion.
Okay. Why don't we at least vote this up and try to move this along? So we've got a motion, we've got a second. We've got no other discussion at this juncture. Let's go ahead and roll call it. Oh, sorry, hold on. Steve had some discussion.
I just want one last thing. I just think it's the wrong timing of the year. I think actually Mr. Reeser stated it earlier. I think I don't know if we can get through it in 60 days or not, but companies are making reservations right now for the summer. I don't know. I don't even know how I'll vote yet at this point, but I just don't think the timing's right. Thank you.
Okay. I guess my only comment to that's going to be is that we've got, even if we fix this, and like I said, I view this as kind of more of an accounting error. I was hoping this could have been fixed administratively. We have 168 business short-term rental certificates still available. So this is really, I view more as an administrative correction. And then we're going to start getting into ways to at least get our fees in line. So hopefully we can't keep losing money. So I guess it's time we can't keep losing money on behalf of the taxpayers. So I think we've got to get both these issues addressed. I'll leave it at that. We got a motion, we got a second. Can we roll call it?
Arnold,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Schlack,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes, so it passes. Thank you, everybody. Is everybody good to go for, we got a couple more quick ones, or does everyone need a break in a minute here?
Mr. Mayor, before we move on, and maybe Nick could clarify, my understanding of that vote that was just taken, that was taken on the motion to amend the original. So I believe now, do we have to now take the vote on the amended motion? Does that make sense?
We just did the amended. I think that was what I was asking Kate if she wanted the original. Just basically was a little less. It just specifically said looking at the rental frequency.
I think it would be Mr. Curcio's call, but I think you have to vote on anything that was made a motion in a second. So I think we would.
I got a little bit lost with the procedure. Did the person who made the amended motion also make the original motion?
Yes.
Then that would be sufficient to amend it.
Perfect. That's
We don't need a further vote if that's the case. If someone else changed it, then you would need a vote.
Perfect. That was kind of was my thought, and we had the same motion and same second. So, anybody need a 5-minute break, or shall we push on?
Push on.
Push on. Okay, let's go. Next item, City Council will be asked to discuss. Oh, sorry. Next one. Asked to set workshop dates for the Capital Improvement Plan workshop. Just need a motion in a second.
This is Jeff Arnold. I'll make a motion to set up the workshop dates for the capital improvement plan.
Steve Schlack, I'll second.
All right, motion, second. Kate, you want to tell us about this? And then public, if you'd like to discuss our upcoming meeting dates, you can raise your hand in a second here.
That's right, sir. So we have some scheduled dates or some suggested dates for a workshop to discuss the 7-year capital improvement plan. As part of our budgeting process, we have our priorities coming up on January 26th. And this would be another workshop that would occur potentially at the dates listed below, Monday, February 8th at 5 or 7 p.m. Tuesday, February 9 at 5 or 7 p.m., or Monday at February 15 at 5 p.m. We're looking to have a workshop date with the council to go over what are the proposed projects in the CIP and what is included in the 7-year capital improvement plan.
How many total dates do we need?
I would suggest 2, and if we don't need the second one, there's no a meeting set for that date, but in case we cannot get through the capital improvement plan, then we would have the second date.
Okay. I'm a fan of Monday nights personally, just because it's city council night, so I have at least 1 or 2 other head nods. How about the Mondays?
Okay, Monday at 5 or Monday at 7, and I'm gonna guess we'll start with the 8th.
Trying to think how fast I can personally get there. I could probably get it there by 5, but let's check with others. How anybody else got to get there from work, and I'm flexible, so.
I can do both, 5 or 8.
I'm flexible.
I'm here.
I
How
can
about,
work with any time or date.
cool. Let's maybe go 5 o'clock.
All right, it sounds like the first meeting would, or the first date would be February 8th at 5 o'clock. And then for an alternate date, in case we have to run over, are we then looking at Monday, the February 15th at 5 o'clock?
That would work for me. I got
That would be a city council date, correct?
Right,
They'll meet before council.
yes.
I'm okay with that.
Does it not work for anyone?
works for me.
I'm
So
good with those.
I think that sounds good.
Okay, very good.
So we have the motion, we have the second. So February the 8th at 5, with the alternate being February the 15th at 5.
Right.
Perfect. Any other council discussion? And if not, let's just roll call and approve it.
Reeser,
Yes.
Schlack,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Next item, city council will be asked to receive an update from our Public Works Director, Mr. Bill Hunter, on the Monroe Boulevard Bluff and Water Street hillside. Good evening, Bill Hunter.
Good evening, Your Honor, City Council. Today I'm providing an update to you. Taking a little history back, we reached out to Edgewater Resources to look at a couple of areas that we wanted some, actually, they called technical memos, where they come in, do site observations and take a look and give you recommendations. So the first one actually in front of you is, should be, I don't know which ones you guys have, Monroe or anyways, let's go over Monroe, the Monroe plan. You can see the original plan was dated in July of 2020, and the updated one was December 17. And like I said, we did receive some communication, several communications, people concerned about the continued deterioration, let's call it, or erosion of the Monroe Bluff, plus actually on Water Street as well. So I like to say that I'm out there probably, I want to say every time I get a call, but I'm out there pretty regularly, probably about once a week. I walk the top of the bluff and I walk the bottom. Some of the interesting things that you can see actually from the Monroe Bluff are just to focus in on those pictures, the ones taken in April and the ones actually that are taken in December. Some of the real significant ones I'd like to point out are the blue stairs, because that's a little representation. I don't remember if you guys remember, we did the high water presentation about, gosh, it's been a year now. We showed some video, I think it was WZZM in '86, actually showed the bottom of the stairs. I find it actually like in April, you can still see the stairs buried, and still the stairs are buried to this date. I haven't seen the bottom of the stairs. I've had people actually tell me, people have been in the city, well, longer than I have, that they remember actually getting off the end of those stairs and actually going right into water. You can actually see it from that one presentation we have. So Edgewater did a walk as well. I did the walk with them, and they're still recommending the same recommendations they had before, is just to continue monitoring actually the Monroe Bluff. There are some things we can do. There's some temporary bags that you can put in and do some stones there. We're about 600,000. You could do some regrading of the hill again. That's not even a long-term solution. And that'll get you that's for 1.8 million. But the big one, actually, number 4 in the plan, is that $5.1 million for a revetment, an armor stone revetment. Now, mind you, our Monroe Bluff management plan, we did that actually in 2017. The input we got from the residents were they wanted to keep that area as natural as possible. I mean, currently it's not natural at this time because, as you can see some of the photos, the one in particular is the wall, and I like to focus actually on the photos actually towards the end. You can actually see 742, and you can see the wall actually from April, and you can actually see it again now in December. But before that shot in December, I was out there a couple weeks before that, and that wall was 4 feet high on me. And the picture that you see right there is only 2 feet. So you actually have sand that's actually redepositing back in. And a lot of that has to do with the jetties. You can actually see those small ones. They're actually working. That's what those jetties are for. The sand will deposit back around her. And so I agree with the findings actually of Edgewater, is just to keep monitoring it. I don't think we have anything that's in danger to the general public or to our infrastructure at this time. And that wall is actually, for a wall that was probably put in the 50s, it's doing pretty good. Let's take a look now next at the Water Street. Again, I received
Bill, I
communication
can't see any of
about
these. I can't see any photographs.
It's in your.
Oh, it's in
Okay,
the
let me try sharing my
packet.
screen then. It's in the packet, yes.
Okay, sorry. I was looking on the screen.
I can. Nope. I'll share my screen now. How's that? Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So this right here is actually the Water Street. And again, the original tech memo goes back to July, and it was updated in December. And you're looking at actually Water Street from Indiana to Eagle Street, let's call it. It's about 490 feet. So we're looking at 2 separate, let's call it the western side and the east side. The western side has some walls in it. The eastern side is a slope, and on the probably east of that is the Eagle Street staircase and dumpster enclosure, which was completed, I want to say, in 2017. Again, the pictures tell you a lot. The pictures in the report have the original pictures from April, plus they had the pictures actually in December. And you're not really seeing any kind of fracturing. You really would. And one of the tall tale signs is if you had a hill that was sloughing off a little, we'd be picking up material constantly on the road, and we aren't. So they had 3 recommendations actually. So let's look on the eastern side. Let's get right to the recommendations. There's another picture of it right there. That shows 1 fracture, but actually further investigation, that's actually a part of an old wall that you see right there. If you remove that brush, there's still an old wall there that was actually buried and continues actually going west, believe it or not. I found some old plans for a soil erosion permit that was pulled for a property in the area. So again, you see Eagle Street stairs, the dumpster enclosure. There's really no concerns there. And here's an update from actually the stairs as well, looking at the dumpster enclosure. And there's the hill there. But let's get to the east. Let's get to the recommendations again. The eastern side. we could do one thing. We could do just a current approach is just keep just keep monitoring it. One of the things though, and I would be proposing in a draft capital improvement plan is adjusting actually a vegetation management plus the runoff. I believe that could probably help because you are seeing a little bit of a sloughing of the hill where it's not so smooth. And I believe we could actually shore that up a little bit better with some, just managing those two, the vegetation plus actually the runoff. Another thing you could do is install basically a drain field down there. So a lot of your problems you have on hillsides is hydraulically the water wants to head to the lake. So you got to think of it that way. So that water hits there. Now, mind you, we're not seeing a lot of runoff or any kind of material in the streetway. We don't have catch basins that are constantly clogged, nothing like that. But this could actually help it as well. So it'd be additional 50,000 on top of the 35. And then, of course, the old retaining wall. You could put a retaining wall in. That's 550,000. Now, mind you, retaining walls are like anything else. Once you put it in, you got to maintain it. Roads, buildings. Once you do, I'm putting on a capital improvement plan, and we're looking at maintenance further down. So the most cost-effective means sustainable is actually, I believe, vegetation. The western portion, which you have the existing retaining walls that are already there, as we continue the same approach as we've done before, is actually keep monitoring it. We actually hired a firm, actually. We're going to monitor, actually survey and monitor the walls and see if it is physically moving. So we set some points, and we're going to continue that about every year. So that's going to help in our monitoring, because there might be something we're not seeing visually. You can take pictures and try to get in the same spot every time, but you need some data. Another thing they look at, because mind you, that wall is up like this, and it should have been designed like this. So option 2, they talked about rebuilding the face of the wall, and they had something in there about 150,000. Now, mind you, once you get into that step of rebuilding the wall and adjusting that slope going back, you're also, I believe, committed to, because look at number 3. Number 3 says, if you run into any problems with the geotextile coming back, you're going to have to rebuild it. So you jump from 150 to 900,000. So it's huge, but that's the cost of doing the wall. So I just think let's continue on our current steps. I don't see, like I've stated before, you don't have any material depositing into catch basins. I go to that site all the time. You don't see any large fracturing of the soil. It's just not sloughing off. But I hear their concerns, and every time they do, I will respond to them. But right now, I agree with actually the technical memo provided from Edgewater Resources. So does City Council have any questions on either one of these reports?
I think I'll just throw out one. My big concern when you look at the Monroe section is, I guess I'd be curious if there's any historical data on how, I mean, we've seen how far it's gone up with these different 25-year cycles. Any thoughts if we get it to drop down, if we get the Army Corps to dump some sand, once we get that done, do you do some sort of, stonework that gets buried on a very simple level? Maybe that's 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road. I mean, I clearly we're going to monitor it right now, but it's just something to, I guess, as you said, just keep an eye on. But I do worry about the next time it comes up, if it goes up like it did this time, does it get closer to that street? So
that's a very good point, Your Honor. That's a very good point. And back in the day, before the waters were high, and there was a lot of property owners that were doing the walls that you stated. They're just doing buried walls. Greg Wycamp was telling me about it. They would just bury the walls. And so when the water got up, now those walls were exposed. And at that time, if you think about it, very smart move. They did it while it's cheaper. Right now, this stone is expensive. it is, you go through it, this cost of, I think right now we're at $5.1 million, might not be $5.1 million 10 years from now, but that's a very good point to look at.
Yeah, just once we've got a little more sand down there, and that's the Army Corps shows up. That's all. I worry about if we do nothing and we wait for the next 25-year cycle, they might be kicking themselves going, woulda, coulda, shoulda when it was down. So that was my only question. Any other council questions or comments on these two? Oh, Steve's got one. Steve, shoot.
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, unmute. There you go.
Yes, okay. I was looking at my notes. Couple items here. I'm trying to flip back and forth from the packet to here. The vegetation on there for the where the dumpster is and the stairway, that area with that vegetation, how can we be assured, is that a dry planting, or do you got to till it? I mean, I'm worried about disrupting something that's stable, somewhat stable at the point, and you go planting new things in there. I'm worried about destabilizing the soil that's there. And then secondly, I like the point of the setting the points for the surveying rather than pictures. I think that's a great idea to just monitor that. And then, and again, I'm just concerned about disrupting what's there now if it's not really moving a whole lot like your observations, you're just setting set points. Thank you.
That's a very good observation. You're right, Steve. I mean, tilling it up probably would not be what I recommend, because you're right. You want to save as much as that. Because right now, all you have is grasses that's holding everything together. So any plan I think we do implement would be something where we're doing pots in, so potting plants, and it may be even a couple of years where you stage them in maybe sections, Steve, and maybe you go back and then plant some other plants. See what I mean? But not disturb what's there, but let those also establish, because it's going to take a little while. But I hear your concerns, and those are valid. We don't want to just till that whole hill up.
George Sleeper.
Yeah, Bill, thanks for the presentation. Real quick question. So I think at the top of the stairs, I'm talking about the eastern part of Water Street there. At the top of the stairs, I think there is a storm drain. And is it possible that some material could be somehow being lost into that storm drain through maybe a break in that storm drain before it goes down into the river? And that's why we're not seeing any kind of material at the bottom of the street. And maybe we should take a look at that storm drain and see if there's anything going down there.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point. That's a good point, George. Typically though, like something on a hill like that would increase velocity. You would actually have probably by this time so much sediment in the manhole down below that it would be plugged up. That's been my experience, but maybe televising it would maybe be a thing to do. And that would actually tell you a lot, because televising it would tell you right away by the seams and stuff what kind of infiltration that you're getting. That's a good point. It's probably pretty cheap insurance. Have them televise it.
That's good. Sounds good. All right. If we have no other questions, no other action needed on those, because you're up again with the next item. So we're good. Okay. Thanks, Bill, for those as always, and stick around. You're on next. City Council be asked to receive a presentation. Mr. Bill Hunter on the South Haven Area Water and Sewer Authority regarding sewer rate increases. Boo, we don't like increases, but tell us about what's coming up.
Yes, I don't want to start to say I'd be happy to, because that's not something you want to start this presentation with. And I want to first start off and apologize to City Council. My intent was not to bombard you with so much information, but to tell the story. you got to provide a lot of data where you came from to make the decisions. So it takes a little long, but bear with me. I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version. So just hang tight and here we go. Water rate increases that are at one of them is actually the water one, 6.5% was just enacted in January of 2021 now. But just to give you a little backstory, changes to the Safe Water Drinking Act. Every time the state changes it, which there's been more and more prevalent the last couple of years. So changes to the Safe Water Drinking Act. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me continue. So every time the state changes an act, I like to say it costs them money, costs all the municipalities money. Even the minor little administration changes. For example, there was one done in 2014 where they changed actually, it was in the cross connection portion of the rule. They changed actually where all services and they added to it to have residential put in there. And they did that for a reason because they wanted us to all inspect all residential connections. So that's where it started. So Safe Water Drinking Act was amended. They amended it actually in January of 2016 to require all municipalities to come up with an asset management plan, which is a good thing. And they actually required us to include a capital plan and a general plan by 2018. So moved forward through the SHASA, we hired Fishbeck, Thompson, Carter and Huber to put a plan together. You can see in the staff report what the Safe Water Drinking Act actually defined what the AMP plan required. It had a criticality, so you had to measure all your assets and how critical they are and what would the consequences be of failure, level of service, plus you had to come up with this 5-year and 20-year capital improvement plan. So we completed the plan in December of 2018. And believe it or not, we had 3 days left and I had to send it electronically to the state. So we did make our requirement. I remember actually I was in Colorado Springs taking a phone call early in the morning. I had Brian on the line, myself, Fishbeck going over the plan just before we could ever send it out. So, but we did make it. But in the plan, it also included a rate methodology, which was required. The rate methodology actually says, hey, it's great you came up with a plan, but how are you going to pay for it? That's your big one right there. You can come up with a plan all day down and put numbers, but how are you going to pay for it? And that's what we're going to come to later. So just the 7-year plan in the original AMP plan came up to $14.535 million worth of projects. Now, what would that rate increase be for that? Well, we had, like I said, we had the rate methodology included. That would have been a 32.16% increase. There's no way we can do that. It really isn't. Plus, in addition to the 14.5, you still had $32 billion in a 20-year plan. Put those together, that's a huge sum of money. So what we did was, in addition to that, we also like to go over a little bit of the SAW grant. We did receive some money back in November of 2014 for a SAW grant. That was for 1.5, almost $1.6 million. The SAW grant actually did also include monies that were received for all those projects we did in 2016 and 2017. That included Monroe, included North Shore, included improvements at the wastewater treatment plant, Indian Grove lift station. So a lot of projects. All in all, those projects actually summed up to $41 million worth of projects. So I went back to Fishbeck, said, we can't do this 15.5. So we've got to make this palatable. So what's our main goal here? So the main goal we started to look at was the concrete standpipe. The concrete standpipe was put in 1927. And in your packet, those pictures that are showed there are actually, well, now they're 3 years old. It's a lot worse. I take a ride down there. If you ever got an opportunity to walk around it, it is fenced off, but please don't go in the fenced area, but it's shedding concrete as we speak. The last inspection we had was Dixon Engineering, and we were required to do internal inspections where this one was a wet one where they actually put an RV inside of it. The engineer at the time from Dixon looked at me and said, "You do plan on replacing this in 5 years, right?" And he was kind of half joking, but not really. So we went back to Shawsa and we hired actually Fishbeck to do a reprioritization, and their actually technical memo is included in here as well, how they came up with a justification. So we got that in place, which ended up being about $9.5 million just to replace the concrete standpipe. It's not just for the standpipe alone, because you have separate pressure districts within Shawsa. You have a high and a low. The high one is actually the concrete standpipe, but also feeds Covert Township. So there's a lot of moving parts there. So the 9.5 million will actually build a steel 1.5 million elevated storage tank, which would be at the DPW building at 1199 8th Avenue. Steel tanks last longer. Concrete structures, as you can see, you don't know about the re-rot in there. It's just sprawling concrete as we speak. So, steel ones, you can inspect them, have them repainted. Steel tanks can last a good 100+ years or more. So we got that set with the technical memo. Then we reached out to United Financial Solutions, UFS. They're a big company nationwide. That's all they do is a rate study. Dawn Lunn, who actually did our rate study, actually does speaking engagements across the nation on rate studies. She's constantly doing speaks with the American Water Works Association, Rural Water. So she's very knowledgeable, and I learned a lot just from talking to her in this, just doing the study with her. So in the staff report, you'll see some excerpts actually from where our rates would be if we did those projects without doing rates. How would our financial look? And the first one you look at is the water side, and you have you'll have a 5-year plan with no rate increases. And what you want to look over is over to your right. You want to see the debt coverage ratio. You'll see it at 0.95, 0.88, 0.84, 0.81. 1 means you pay your bills. 1 means the money coming in is the money going out. But that's all you're doing, and they don't recommend that for a municipal water industry. We need to be at 1.25, 1.45. So as you can see, we're not covering our debt, and that's actually just doing the adjusted capital improvement plan. Right, the next one you're going to see is actually your cash flows, and you want to look at the bottom at the target. So your cash available. So you want to hit a minimum target, and the minimum target is actually based on how much revenue you got in, and plus your infrastructure going out, because you need some cash. If say you have some catastrophic failure, you don't have time to, for example, say, hey, why don't you come in and do the repairs, but by the way, I have to go get a bond. It doesn't work that way. So we have to have cash available for certain emergencies. So you can see we want to strive for that 3, and that first year we're at 2 and 0.3, then it drops as soon as we start doing projects, and you can actually see it in the negative level going further over. Your next one actually is on the sewer side. And again, look at that debt ratio over there and take a look at, we had one adjustment on the sewer rate before that because we had a carryover from, remember I told you about the SAW project. That was, we had a 5-year 9.3, 9.5 increase. And that was actually cover that $41 million that I told you about before. That being said, we still, even with those rate increases, we don't cover. We're actually a little bit in the red on that. And actually the water side actually levels the debt off. But again, going back, you can see the debt coverage going down to 0.08, because basically you're not paying your bills. So again, the sewer fund cash flow, it's kind of reflective of that. You should have a minimum target of, in that first year, we're doing good, but then as you can see over time doing the projects. So Your next one, your next two are actually the rate increases that are currently going on. The first one is the 6.5. Now look over to your farthest over to your debt ratio. You're still at 1.07. You're not at that 1.25, but is if you had to get to the 1.25, you're going to be raising that rate even higher. So you're doing a slow rate increase. Yes, I know 6.5 is a lot, but it could be a lot higher. So we're slowly building it in, and you can see it go 1.07, 1.11, 1.18, then slowly by the fifth year in that 2.5, you got 2 years of 2.9, you're at 1.25. And the same actually, again, the same one is looking at the sewer one. So 9.3 for the 9.3 and 9.9, 9.9, 9.9, 2.9. And you have a debt ratio, and it's going up, and actually towards those back years, it's looking great. So in summary, we have increases on the water side at 6.5, and January 1 of 2021, July 1, we have another 6.5, and then we have another sewer one at that July 1 of 2021, then another sewer increase in July of 2022. Now, the Shawsa board has directed me to every year since Dawn's got this dialed in. She has an extensive spreadsheet that I'm just going to have her take a look and revise these. So we're projecting out based on projections, but it could actually go down. So it's not something like these ones that we have right here. Yes, we're sticking with those, but future ones might not be what you see right there. I included in your report the cost of service study for both the water and the sewer. And those actually have sample bill increases, so people can go in there and see, well, how much would it cost if I have a 2-inch or 2-inch meter? Or how much would it cost if I have a 3/4, 1-inch? So everything is in there. One thing I want to actually just go over just a little bit that we did have to modify our AMP schedule. We had originally we had a 5-year and a 20-year plan, which we did submit to the state of Michigan. I had to come up with our own 40-year plan and push things out further. It's not what's recommended by the American Water Works Association, meaning they recommend mains should be replaced, like cast iron shouldn't be in the ground any more than 50 years. And we have a lot of them that are well beyond 50 years. I'm actually pushing those out further, but I almost have to. So it's if I didn't do that and went by just what the rate says, it would be by what the AMP plan said, our rates would be even higher than what they are right now. So that's my presentation. I tried to go through it as quickly as possible, but is there any questions that the council may have of this or anything else attached within the staff report?
Let's see, Joe, got a question.
Yeah, my question is, Bill, when you talk about a 6.5% increase on top of a 6.5% increase, is that on water usage, or are you going to increase all the fees? Because when I look at my water bill, and I just pulled it up as we're talking, my fees are about 4 times higher already than the water usage. So if you're going to raise 6.5% on the fees, or just 6.5% on the actual water, that's a big difference. So which is it? Or is it on everything?
It is on the you're ready to serve and your commodity. So your water itself. You have a ready to serve on your bill and a commodity. Now, with this change that we're having, we're also simplifying the bill. You used to have a capital improvement rate for the water plant and a capital improvement for the distribution. We're combining those together to simplify the bill. Reason being is a lot of communication I've received over the years I've been here is our bill is very confusing. And coming from other municipalities, which this is my 5th municipality, it is a confusing bill. That's like a laundry list of looking at it. It should be simple. You should have ready to serve, and you should have rates. I know what probably the intent was at the time, but actually our rate specialist actually told us we needed to do this as well and recommended it to the board. So to answer your question, the ready to serve is going up plus the commodity rate.
Well, there's more than that. There's water replacement, there's water cap, then there's the water usage, which is minimal. Then there's water capital replacement, then there's water ready to serve. That's a whole lot.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, all those fees are literally 10 times higher than the actual water that I use. So my question for the taxpayer is, again, is it going to go up on those 4 or 5 I just read, or the usage, or both? And it sounds like you're saying it's going to go on everything.
That's correct. And those 5 things that you said, Jill, 4 of them are combining, Jill. And 1 of them actually is just your water usage or your commodity. So your bill now will just come up with 1 combined, and it'll be called the ready to serve, but it's combining all those amounts. And the other one is actually, and the rate increase is on both. You are correct. But we're simplifying the bill, combining those 4 and having your commodity.
That's unfortunate, because if a consumer wants to try to cut their water bill and be more economical, they really can't, because the fraction of the cost of their total water bill is their water they use. All the rest they're locked into every month.
That's correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure I understand.
Hey, Bill, can you just, at some point in time, I think anytime we talk about fee increases, we have to be willing to share what we're trying to do to contain costs. And I think we should just, be cognizant of that. I know we've talked about that, but just anytime we can share what we try to do. And obviously that comes from applying for grants, that comes to making sure that we're replacing pipes in the ground while we're doing street repair. We try to be, strategic in how we do those things, but just if we could be very diligent about sharing how we are trying to contain costs, because these rate increases are steep. And I have yet to receive a lot of happy phone calls about our rates. And obviously all of us here get those same bills. So I think we just need to be diligent about how we're trying to keep costs down at a time when costs are going up.
Okay.
Mr. Schley.
One thing I did miss actually at my presentation, and another thing that goes back to the changes to the Safe Water Drinking Act, is the lead service replacement. Lead service replacement is going to cost Shawsa over 20 years, $15.9 million. Imagine that. Imagine if I took that out of my cost. I'm starting with $625,000. I got a budget to replace. I got to replace 100 services per year. This city, even back in the day when let's look at Casco, South Haven Township, when they were installing, they weren't putting in 100 services a year. We've got to replace 100 services a year, and that's just in the city of South Haven. So you have all of Shawsa paying for all of that. That's $15.9 million. That is an unfunded mandate from a change to the Safe Water Drinking Act, and all they did was change the definition of a lead service. Change the definition of lead service cost us that, and we're not the only ones. You got Grand Rapids. Everybody is wondering how we're going to pay for this. They've had lawsuits out about it. And I don't think it's still over. I think we're still going to do it, but I forgot to touch on that. But I think it's something that, and I hope I've said this before, and I keep ringing this bell. Anytime we need to talk to our state leave that act alone. It's good. We had a good act that actually, and the EPA was recommending amounts. Now we actually have a stricter guidelines than the whole nation. So think about that.
Nope, that's good. And I think we have to be able to share that. Like you said, it's the Flint mandate right now.
Yes.
So people have to be aware of it. But like I said, just anything we can do to explain the why, I think, and what we're trying to do to keep costs down as best we can. So they realize that this is no fun for anyone. So, sorry, Steve, you had your hand up there.
Yes, a couple points. Maybe in a simple explanation from Bill, why does the city pay a higher rate than out of city? And also the second point of my question would be, does that lead replacement pipes and stuff, is that included in this rate increase, or are we going to be back in the same boat again in another year?
That's a very good question. No, the increases are taken into account for this, Steve. I did have those in the cash flow analysis. So I have the 625 budgeted starting to come out. Now, mind you, if costs start coming in higher, which I expect they would, and I do have a cost of inflation built on that over the cash flow analysis, but I do expect they're going to come. I do expect we're going to be higher than the 15.9 million. To answer your question about outside the city, our original rates actually before Shawsa was combined, the Casco Township and South Haven Township did have a lower ready to serve and capital charges than we did. So when it was when the Shawsa was combined, it was stated actually in the and I want to say it was an agreement that when combining the authority, there would be nothing detrimental to one municipality or the other. So we do have a plan in place to raise them up, and we're doing that gradually over a longer period of time. So, but you are right. They do, we do pay more than them, but they're coming back up to us. So we're raising them each year a little bit at a time.
Could we get a copy of that long-term plan and how long that is? Because it's quite a big difference, in my opinion, from the rates.
Well, we actually mentioned it, and I thought it was a 10-year plan we have to do it, so to gradually move it up. But the one thing we got to look at, and one thing I want to stress is we got to take a look at, as a community of South Haven, we got to look at that lead service replacement. I mean, that is critical. Right now, we're spreading that over a whole authority, and that's a huge thing. But
okay,
and we can get those rates for you. We can get you the 10-year plan, right? Right, Bill?
I can do that. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good. No other action needed on this. Kate, anything else from us on this?
Nothing further. Thank you so much, Bill, for your presentation.
Okay, Bill, thank you. Appreciate it. Before we get into citizens in the audience, let's go ahead and just take 5 minutes before we come back. We can hear citizens in the audience and we'll get us out of here. So can I have a motion to take maybe a 5-minute recess?
Steve Schlack, I'll make a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
Joe Reeser, I'll second it.
Motion second, take a 5-minute recess. Roll call.
Schlack,
Yes.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins, is Wilkins there?
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. See everybody at 9:26-ish by my phone. So thereabouts. Thank you. How's the skiing, Jeff? Good? All right.
I haven't had dinner yet, Scott.
Me neither.
Oh my God, so you're as bad as me.
No,
I went to the gym, then started the meeting, so I'm starving.
I went right from work to the dentist, to my son Garrett's Eagle Scout Board of Review, to here. All right, are we all back? 1, 2, 3. I think that's all of us. 9:26. We're back. Can I get a motion to return to open session?
Steve Slack, I'll make a motion to return to open session.
Joe Reeser, I'll second it.
We have a motion, a second, to return to open session. Roll call, please.
Sleeper,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. We are now at that time of the meeting where citizens in the audience will be heard on items not on the agenda. We will give you 5 minutes to address the council. Kate will help us just to identify again. It's you can raise your hand with the icon on your screen or *9. And Kate, help me identify between Kate and Nathan. If we can have a timer here and make sure we're staying on task. And let's see who's here.
All right, it looks like we have several hands up. We'll start with Mitch, who called in earlier. So I'll ask Mitch to go ahead and unmute. And it says Mitch, but I think it was Miss Mitchell. If you can state your name and your address, you'll have 5 minutes to go ahead and speak to the council.
Good evening, council. This is Denise Mitchell, and I reside at 72300 Erica Way in South Haven. Just because it's Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday today, I just like to pay tribute to him with a reading of one of his quotes, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Love is the most durable power in the world. This creative force, so beautifully exemplified in the life of our Christ, is the most potent instrument available in mankind's quest for peace and security. Thank you.
Thank you for calling and sticking around. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, we have another one. It just says iPhones. I'm not sure who it is. So I'll ask this person to go ahead and unmute. And if you can state your name and your address, you'll have 5 minutes to address the council.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Beverly Brown. I live at 564 Indiana Avenue. And 6.5 years ago, my husband and I moved here. One of the reasons we moved to South Haven was because it is a diverse community. I was born and raised in Highland Park, Michigan, which is another diverse community in the Detroit area. And there, as here, it's important to learn about your neighbors, what's important to them, how we can work together to make all our lives better. So when we moved here, my husband Larry and I made friends. We visited almost all the churches. I joined the Ward 1 Community Action Committee. I worked the elections. My husband started the Jazz Festival, and mostly we walk all over town and we talk to people. And we learned that African Americans have lived in South Haven for a very long time. Most of our friends of color have lived here their whole lives. They've raised their children here, and they've invested their lives and money here. And like all of us, they want to feel safe, respected, valuable. And I want to applaud our school system for giving all children here a great education. I look at our music program and how the music directors have especially reached out to the minorities. And I want to applaud our police chief, Natalie Thompson, who since the Black Lives Matter March especially has opened up a discussion with the community to talk about, all kinds of sensitive issues like what our police force does in sensitivity training and what does use of force mean, and making the Elkenberg Park and its neighborhood around it very safe. But employment in our city government has not represented our Black community well. In the words of Freddie Sanders, who spoke to the commission at the last meeting, we have a diverse set of people and our city hall doesn't show it. Joe Wilkins also commented last time that there's a drastic need for change. At the same meeting, Kim Weiss, who is our city's HR person, presented in a written form. She said, we need to actively recruit diverse candidates rather than passively waiting for candidates to apply. And she has presented ideas to do just that. I suggest that we might set a concrete goal that say within 2 years, City Hall employ 2 African Americans to work in upfront visible jobs full-time. I mean, let that be the goal and let that direct the steps the city should take. It could be anything from putting together a diversity commission or having a career fair at Elkenberg Park, but whatever is needed to meet the goal should come first. Okay, I'm not a speaker like Martin Luther King Jr. I'm just an older white woman, but many of us in South Haven have a dream of seeing African Americans get good paying jobs at City Hall who will welcome other people of color as they come and pay their bills and they do other business with the city. And also, many of us dream that there'll be more Black people working downtown, young people learning the soft skills of employment as a prerequisite to gaining permanent jobs here in South Haven as adults. I mean, I know there are lots of issues, but I just want to say, we believe City Hall could be and should be a shining light of inclusiveness, diversity, and unity. Thank you.
Thanks, Beverly.
Okay, and then we have looks like Pamela Frazier. And I'll go ahead and ask her to unmute. And if you can state your name and your address, you have 5 minutes to address the council.
Hello, yes, this is Pamela Frazier. I live at 21870 M140 Highway here in South Haven. I just would like to also take this opportunity to pay homage to our late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with a reading of one of his quotes, if I could, right quickly. And the quote is, "New laws are not enough. The emergency we now face is economic. It is a desperate and worsening situation. For the 35 million poor people in America, there is a kind of strangulation in the air. In our society, it is murder psychologically to deprive a man of a job or an income. You are in substance saying to that man that he has no right to exist. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy." Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Then we will go on to, it looks like we have K51. I'm not sure what that is. I'm going to ask that person to unmute, and if you can state your name and your address, you'll have 5 minutes with the council.
Okay, how y'all doing?
Good, thank you. Good evening.
My name is Mickey Paul, and I live at 871 South Haven, Michigan. I would like to pay tribute to Dr. King with a reading of one of his quotes. "True peace is not merely the absence of tension. It is the presence of justice." That's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank All right, and it looks like we have Erica Driver. If you can go ahead and unmute, you'll have 5 minutes. If you want to state your name and your address, go ahead and address the council.
Hi, my name is Erica Driver, 418 Abel Street, South Haven, Michigan. I myself as well would like to pay tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King with the quote as well. Justice and freedom. The deep rumbling of discontent that we hear today is the thunder of disinherited masses, rising from dungeons of oppression to the bright hills of freedom. In one majestic chorus, the rising masses sing in the words of our freedom song. Ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. All over the world, like a fever, the freedom of movement is spreading in the widest liberation in history. The great masses of people are determined to end the exploitation of their races and land. They are awake and moving towards their goal like a tidal wave. You can hear them rumbling in every village, street, on the docks, in the houses, among the students in churches, and at political meetings. These developments should not surprise any student of history. Oppressed people cannot remain oppressed forever. The yearning for freedom eventually manifests itself. The Bible tells the thrilling story of how Moses stood in Pharaoh's court centuries ago and cried, "Let my people go." A quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Erica, for sharing. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. And it looks like we have, I'm not sure what the name is, but I think it says Sis Deborah. I'll go ahead and ask this person to state your name and your address, and you've got 5 minutes to address the council.
My name is Deborah Paul. I live at 871 Indiana, and I would like to do a tribute from Dr. Martin Luther King, one of his quotes. Love is the only focus capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We have another one. It just says iPhone on there. I'll ask this person to unmute. You can state your name and your address. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Is our iPhone out there?
Yeah. Just iPhone. It doesn't have a name with it. I'm asking press the unmute button if you can go ahead and unmute.
I think they already spoke.
Oh, could be. Maybe go on to Gail.
Okay. Gail, if you want to go ahead and speak, there you go, Gail.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm here as a county commissioner for Van Buren District 1, and I just wanted to do a report on from the health department. The Van Buren Cass District Health Department website puts out information on, of course, the COVID-19, and the most recent information from the 18th today is that there are 4,271 confirmed positive COVID-19 cases in Van Buren County, and there are 80 confirmed deaths due to COVID-19. The vaccine supply is very limited, severely limited, and the demand is extremely high. And the limitation is due to the amount of vaccine from the state and federal government. There was a briefing for the county commissioners, and we were told that we only received 700 doses for the 2 counties. More will be coming in, and that is for the health department. I'm not sure if the hospitals are receiving doses separately, but there is a registry for Bronson, Borges, University of Michigan, and also I've heard at Myers. Some of the registries are full, but it's good. We were told that if people get on multiple registries, go for the first chance to get your vaccine. So you can get on multiple registries. It doesn't guarantee that you will get your appointment right away, but you will be on the registry and hopefully they will contact you. And I just like to repeat the website for those who would like to go on to find out more about the COVID-19 vaccine. V as in Victor, B as in boy, CASS, CASS, D for district, H for health, and D as in dog, .org. That's the VBCASDHD.org. That's the website that you can keep up on information. It's so important for those who want to get the vaccine to be able to realize there are registries out there. Sometimes your doctor might be able to put you on a registry if they have that in their office. And now I like to take off my commissioner's hat and just as a community member who wants to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day, along with many of the other residents, I'd like to give a quote. And I just like to thank everybody for their quotes that they gave today. It's very heartwarming. This quote from Martin Luther King Jr., I'm going to change it a little. When it comes to he, I'm going to add she also. So the ultimate measures of a man, and I'm adding woman, man or woman, is not where he, she stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he, she stands at times of challenge and controversy. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gail. Appreciate the call in.
You're welcome.
Okay, and it looks like we have Joe Wilkins. I'll go ahead and ask him to unmute.
Good evening, Joe Wilkins.
Can you hear me, Kate?
Yep.
Pastor Joe, we hear you.
Thank you. Joe Wilkins, 811 Indiana Street. I want to say good evening to the council and hi to our city manager. First off, I would like to thank all those that gave tribute to the late Dr. King and his great contribution that he made to our society. And secondly, I would like to address the article that was in last Sunday's paper, which was entitled South Haven City Officials Say They Are Taking Steps to Increase Hiring Minorities. In doing so, let me first start by saying to the council, not only was that article troubling to me and to the Black community, but it was also viewed by many of our white residents as troubling and very misleading on many levels. For starters, in the article, the HR director, Kim Weiss, acknowledged that when she was hired, she realized that there was a big problem when it came to hiring minorities for full-time jobs. Kim stated, and I quote, "Historically, there has been a disparity in hiring minority candidates for full-time positions." She told city council members earlier this week, "I saw this immediately and wanted to do something to fix it." But what the council should know and be alarmed about is that in spite of her efforts to fix it over the past year and a half, in reality, it's still not fixed. To give you an example, the last 4 full-time positions with good pay and benefits were all filled by whites, non-minorities. All filled by whites, non-minorities. Keep in mind, council, these positions don't come open often. Those that are hired on tend to stay until retirement. The 4 positions that I'm talking about or included was 1 administrative assistant position in which the city received a qualified minority applicant. There was a city clerk position, and keep in mind that there was a minority seasonal worker that was said to be such an overachiever that Kim wanted to keep on board, but for some reason in this fix wasn't considered for the clerk's position. Also, there was the assistant city manager position, which again, the city received a very qualified minority applicant. And last, there was the city manager position, all within City Hall, all was filled, I believe, within 1 year time span. All filled, again, by non-minorities. But yet the article attempted to paint a picture that the city has taken great steps to rectify this problem of disparity, when you and I both know it's just simply not accurate. The numbers do not support it. This was painfully obvious by the announcement of the last two hires, which was listed in the same Sunday paper. To the council, what that article has shown me and many people of color, as well as other white residents, is that it's clearly obvious the city needs help in trying to come up with the right fix to this problem. With that being said on tonight, I, along with many others in the community, again, would like to echo the same request to the council as it pertains to the hiring of an independent party whose task would be to perform an equity assessment on the city's EEOC policies, as well as the overall organization.
Hey, Joe, you got about 1 minute.
Thank you. My final comment, I want to welcome others in our community to render your voice and support and stand with me and others in our effort to be treated fair as we seek to reach a place of equal opportunity for everyone, as we honor Dr. King, who had a dream that one day we would not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. Thank you. Looking forward to hearing back from the council in regards to the request.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like we have Reverend Cobbs. I'll go ahead and ask him to unmute. Reverend Cobbs, if you can see that, go ahead and unmute and state your name and your address. You can have 5 minutes to address the council.
Hello, Aaron Cobbs, are you out there? Looks like no. Anybody else out there?
Yes, we'll try. It looks like it's a telephone number ending in 173. I'll go ahead and ask them to unmute.
Everyone's going to sleep.
Hi. Hello?
Good evening.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. My name is Dorothy Sherrod, and I live at 875 Kalamazoo Street. I'm calling in to support what I have heard thus far about the minority hiring. I read the article and I called and I talked to Kim Wise. That article was like a slap in the face to me as an African American, having lived here in this community for over 50 years. I just want to express my concerns because Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee on April the 4th, 1968. He was there to support the sanitation workers for fair wages and working conditions. That's been over 50 years ago. Here we are in 2021. I have seen in the time that I have lived here, over 50 years, only one African American woman working in the front lobby of City Hall. And my question to you is tonight, how long are we going to have to wait to see the city stand up and give us the opportunity? Because it's not that the skills are not here. The skills have been here for years. The problem is our city leaders are not recognizing and they're not doing their due diligence and putting in place fair hiring practices to assure that African Americans and that the city government, the city workers are diversified. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Bishop.
Okay, we'll try with Aaron Cobbs again.
Kate, he's trying to get on. but he can't unmute himself. Is there any way you can unmute him?
I'll see what I can do. There we go. Maybe that'll work. If Aaron Cobbs can hear me, I did try to make you a co-host so you can unmute yourself. I can try that again. Because all I can do is ask to unmute. There, I'm not sure if that's working or not.
Aaron, are you there? Yeah. Change. Well, Kate, why don't we maybe move on, and if he plugs back in, we can let him speak. Is that fair? That way we can give him another minute or two to.
Sure, I've made him a co-host, so he should be able to unmute himself and even start his video if he wants. But I can only ask to unmute, so that's as much as I can do at this point.
That's okay. Well, there's no other public comments, right? So why don't we just, we'll leave it open for him to get a hold of us, and why don't we go ahead, it's up to your comments at this point in time.
Okay, I guess just briefly, I do really enjoy and I'm very thankful to receive all the comments that we've heard tonight. I think that's really impressive that we've had up to 45 people, almost 46 people at tonight's meeting. So that was really good. We've heard a lot of good things, sharing from our community on many of our topics tonight. So thank you everyone who's called in. I want to remind everyone, snow removal, if you have not seen that we have, obviously we're having some snow coming down, but that also means that we have obligations as property owners as to remove the snow when it gets above 2 inches, and that parked cars should be off the street when we have snow down. Two, I want to remind the council that we have our priority setting session next on January 26th at 7 p.m. I should be getting a list of potential priorities out to the council here and later this week. Also, we have the beach safety workshop. This will be our second of 2 so far. And that is on, this Thursday night via Zoom at 6 p.m. So those are the things I wanted to say. Also, I wanted to very much appreciate all the comments we received on Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday and observation and paying tribute. I don't think enough can be said about the contributions to Dr. King, to our nation and to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. All right. That will take us down. Any more? No more from Aaron. I see him still down there, but
he may not have selected his microphone in the settings. If that's the case, it really doesn't matter if we ask him to unmute, but if Reverend Cobbs could submit his comments, I'd be happy to share that with council. But I'm not really sure how to get beyond this technology.
Just making sure. Council comments. Let's go around. George.
No comments tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Joe Reeser.
Did you say Joe Reeser?
I did.
I am so sorry. I have to take a deep breath. 2 city council meetings ago, Letitia made some sad statements about the hiring, what she thought were the hiring practices and the problems in the city. Last city council, many people called in and talked about their concerns. But I do remember, on a very positive note, one woman called in and said, and clearly she was an African-American woman, she said she didn't think this was a racist town and it's filled with a lot of good people, but we're just missing the mark. I can tell you, in the 18 years I've been here, And the 3 years I've been city council, I have never heard a racist statement from anyone on city staff, anyone on city council, and none of the neighbors and residents I've come in contact with, and that's been a lot of people. But there's a disconnect in this city right now. The African-American population in this town, and I cannot begin to speak for them, and Dorothy Schrod always corrects me on this, so I won't speak for them. But as an observer and as a Ward 1 council person, what I understand and what I've observed is that there's a lot of African-American people that don't feel they're getting the respect, they're not being treated with dignity, and they're just not being heard. Now, we can go back and forth, what's right, what's wrong, who's right, who's wrong. Bottom line is, we got to start listening and start including the Black community. I know I've talked to Kate, I know she's on board with this. Pastor Wilkins said a couple things that I thought were really important. And the most important he talked about is a diversity equity task force. And that is an outside company that could come in and evaluate our city at large and determine what they think is the relationship between the various groups, the minorities and the whites in this town, and what they think is good and bad. They could take that information and give it to the city staff, and we could create a diversity committee. Now, this is not a new idea. This Joe took right out of the playbook from the diversity manager in Kalamazoo, who is a very, very talented, very educated Black woman that is doing this in Kalamazoo. And she is willing to talk to us, Kate knows, and the mayor, to talk to Kate and the mayor and get this thing started. So there's a lot of things I think we can do to start listening to the Black community and start moving forward. If we don't, we're going to go backwards. We can't continue to stay where we're at. And so that's my thoughts. I want to end, I'm sorry, it's not a Martin Luther King quote, but I was watching TV a couple of weeks ago, and a Black doctor, I believe, is the person who said this. And I thought it was so appropriate for tonight. He said, "A society cannot flourish until the inherent worth of each person is valued." So I'm hoping we can start to make progress in the area, and Kate knows and the mayor knows I'll be working with them and listening, but I can't head this up. This has got to be headed by the Black community. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Steve Schlock.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. This is Aaron Cobbs is just unmuted.
Okay, you got me now?
Yes, sir.
We got you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm got to get used to this thing. Okay, after we quoting Dr. King today, now I just want to do a quote that he said. He said, "If a man get behind in a race, he must forever remain behind or run faster than the man in front." And the reason I use that quote, because the city of South Haven has such a small window of opportunity, but in the hiring practice for, minorities. And if not now, when is a minority would be hired? Because, as I say, it's such a small window of opportunity. And when a qualified minority present themselves to be for a job that's open, I think you should take a serious look at them if you want to diversify. Because, as I say, it's such a small window of opportunity in South Haven. I think I've been here since 1968, and I think it's only 4 African Americans I remember work up front in City Hall. And I think any city government, a local entity that funded by taxpayers' money should have at least one minority working, in up front, like in City Hall or someplace. because some of you might not have lived through this. I lived through, I was raised through this. I was raised in Greater Mississippi, and I used to see my father and all the people around paying taxes. And they paid taxes, but we go to this courthouse where we went. There was no African American. We didn't see nobody look like us until in the 90s, the early 90s. You know, I went back in the early 90s and I went in the courthouse, and it was people that looked like me. And I felt so proud because I used to stand on the courthouse step, go in the courthouse to get water. It was you know, white water fountain, color water fountain, white bathroom, colored bathroom. And I hear now people saying, you know, this country more divided than it's ever was. But this country been divided a long time. We coming together now. But I think the only way, like a city like South Haven, we need to see somebody that look like us when we go in to pay our bills at City Hall. We need to see somebody that look like us because we pay taxes and the city is run by our taxes. And I just, you know, that's all really I had to say. One more quote I want to give by Robert Kennedy, right before he got assassinated, or right before he died. He said, "Some men see things as they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not." So many people see, when they go downtown, the city of South Haven, in City Hall, they see only Caucasian working in there, and they ask why. Why is there only Caucasian working here? But when I go down there, I don't see no African American, and I ask why not? Why not there's any African American working there? And so by me asking the question, it's not gonna change anything. The people that's, the power that is there in there now to do the hiring, they have to ask that question of themselves. Why is there no African American working here? And my final thing I would like to say, I get a lot of inspiration from songs. And there was a song said, if you look into your heart with a positive mind, the power to be need to look into their heart with a positive mind and ask the question, why is there no African American, or there's no peoples of color, or no minorities working in City Hall? And that's all I gotta say. Thank you, God bless you, and I love all of you.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate the phone call. All right, that takes us back to Mr. Steve Schlack.
No comment.
Letitia.
First, I want to say thank you to Mr. Polk. We love him, and he is a part of our community. I've been knowing him all my life, and I think highly, highly of him. Have much. In fact, he is my neighbor, and I appreciate him coming on. And I am just so happy that Reverend Cobbs made it on, because I heard him share his stories about marching in the civil rights, something I've never experienced. And I'm so glad that Bishop Sherrod got on and said what she said, powerful words. And I just think that I'm glad that they got on, because I think the city needs to know that the Black community is working together, and they are walking together. Although we might have different methodologies, we still we all stand for the same thing. And in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King, everyone knows that famous speech, I Have a Dream. And still in 2021, I think we're still saying we still have a dream. Those are my last comments.
Thank you, Letitia. And that leads us to Mr. Jeff Arnold.
Well, thank you. We've had so many great quotes tonight. So many people calling in with the great quotes from the Reverend Dr. King. And a nice testament to Dr. King is that no one took my favorite quote, that he was such a good orator, such a good thinker, that there's so much quotable stuff out there. And my favorite quote from Dr. King is the one that said, where he said, "Not everyone can be famous, but everyone can be great, because greatness is determined by the service that you give." And I think that that's true for all of us on city council, that we're doing this because we want to serve. And then I think it's apropos because, we've heard time and time again that the African-American community feels that we're not listening all the time and that they want their voices to be heard. And this was, I think it was Pastor Wilkins brought it up at the last meeting about getting more people onto our committees and our boards. And so I asked Kate, and she was right on it and had that information that we have a vacancy on our housing commission, on the zoning board of appeals, and the downtown development authority. So there's 3 chances where we need people. And it would be awesome if we could get some people from the African-American community, any of the diverse communities out there, so we could get these voices into our city government. So again, it was good to hear from Mr. Polk and everyone that spoke today about Dr. King. And hopefully we can definitely keep those quotes in mind and use it to move forward in our city.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. All right, I will wrap it up. So again, just thank everybody for calling in. Thank you, Eddie Polk. Yes, an amazing man. It was an honor to have you share with us this evening. So thank you for starting off the meeting that way. I know I am meeting with Pastor Wilkins this Friday, and I will continue to say what we said all along, and that is, obviously we want to listen and we want to hear. I think we've been clear on some of the initiatives, and I guess I feel like maybe Kate will work on just maybe continue to clarify. I get concerned when I hear things like we're not hiring fairly, because I believe there's maybe some misconceptions. So I just want to make sure that we're clearly communicating with the community our hiring practices. So with that, I guess I would just want to say, let us commit to really to listen more, to do more, to make South Haven a more receptive, diverse, and inclusive community. I guess I'll finish with that, and I am committed to do that. So on that, I will seek a motion to adjourn.
Joe Reeser, I'll second it.
I missed the first, but if we had a first and a second, roll call it.
Wilkins.
I'm sorry, can I just stop here? I think I just heard Joe Reeser make the motion. Was there an actual second?
I heard Reeser second. I didn't hear the original motion. That's why I was curious.
Who did make the original motion then?
No one did.
Oh, Jeff Arnold, good, make one. I thought maybe I missed it.
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Joe Reeser, I'll second it.
Perfect. All right, now let's roll call it.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Arnold.
Yes.
Reeser.
Yes.
Schlack.
Yes.
Sleeper.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes, see everybody next week for priority setting. Thanks all for tuning in. Have a great night.
Bye.